Chapter 580. I have made up my mind. These 4 words were said very decisively, indicating that Ling Yufang was really angry. He had to use his strength to prove that he didn't rely on his father. Lu Shang was on the verge of collapse. The other party was obviously provoking him on purpose, yet he was still foolishly looking for trouble. The city lord was so wise and powerful, how did he give birth to such a bastard? Of course. He only dared to think about it in his heart and didn't dare to say it out loud. All right. Jun Cheng smiled and said, Little Mu, why don't you fight with young Master Ling? Yes. Su Xiaoma jumped into the ring. Before he even started warming up, the disciples of the Sect of all time started to send messages to him. Senior brother Su, you have to beat this guy up. That arrogance of Gang Cheng really pisses me off. I have to torture him until he's half dead. It's best to beat him until he pisses all over. The reason why everyone hated him so much was because Ling Yufang deliberately called the Sect of all times an ancient sect. It had to be said. In terms of attracting hatred, this guy was comparable to Jun Changshao. Shua. Ling Yufang landed on the ring, his eyes flashing with anger. If his eyes could kill, Su Xiaoma would have been cut into pieces. The one on the ring is an inner disciple of the Sect of all times, his strength is definitely not bad. Can young Master Ling win? I heard that this young city lord Ling's talent isn't too high, his father used a lot of natural treasures to help him shape his meridians. Sigh, this is a good life, this is a good reincarnation. Ling Yufang heard the whispers of the Southwest Yangzhou martial artists, the anger in his body was even stronger. Why did they only care about his father? No one cared about his hard work all these years. Could it be, because of his birth? All his hard work and effort were erased, and blamed on having a good father. This is unfair to me. Under the burning anger, Ling Yufang released Wuzong's cultivation, and said in a low voice, I want to let you know that I can become the young city lord, to have my current cultivation, it's all because of myself. How? Su Xiaoma smiled. Ling Yufang, who had unleashed his full cultivation, said proudly, let's compete with weapons. Shua. As he spoke, he gently raised his right hand, and a sword with a dragon beast engraved on it appeared. Although it hadn't been unsheathed, it exuded a sharp aura. 3-foot swimming dragon sword. Oh my god, this is one of City Lord Ling's personal swords. Its quality has already reached the high level of the highest level. I never thought that he would give it to his son. Everyone looked at him enviously. Lu Shangqing and Gu Tuhong's eyes flashed with a strange light. As Wu Huang, they didn't have such a weapon that was close to the saint level. True enough. It was awesome to have a good father. It was quite ironic that Ling Yufang, who wanted to prove himself, took out the sword that his father had given him. Come. Su Xiaoma said, let's begin. Where's your weapon? To deal with a rookie like you, my bare hands are enough. Arrogant. Ling Yufang's eyes turned cold. He immediately grabbed the hilt of the sword. With a clang, the 3-foot swimming dragon sword was unsheathed. This sword was 3 feet long, and the blade was white. When it was unsheathed, there seemed to be a dragon's roar. It was indeed a very good weapon. Even the strong ones might not be able to buy it even if they had the money. Shua. Ling Yufang poured his psionic energy into the sword and suddenly slashed it in the void. Instantly, it dragged a cold and sharp sword aura. Su Xiaoma tiptoed and used a mysterious footwork to bypass it. Then, he appeared behind Ling Yufang and directly threw a kick. Bang! Ling Yufang didn't have time to dodge at all. He was directly kicked on the shoulder and quickly retreated with the sword in his hand. Shua. Su Xiaoma strode forward and poured his psionic energy into his right foot. Suddenly, he launched a dazzling bombardment. Bang! 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 In an instant, Ling Yufang suffered a heavy blow to his chest and staggered back to the edge of the arena. He was only a 4th-grade Wuzong. Even if he had a high-grade sword, in front of Su Xiaoma who was at the peak of Wuzong, he would be completely destroyed. Damn it! Ling Yufang endured the pain and angrily displayed his sword art. Suddenly, a dense sword shadow appeared in front of him. This was also a profound sword art that the city lord prepared for his son. Unfortunately, Ling Yufang's talent wasn't outstanding. Even if he learned the sword art, even if he had a high-grade sword, it would still be difficult for him to display its true power. Shua! Shua! Su Xiaoma used his full speed to dodge left and right on the arena, avoiding the cold sword aura. Then, he went in front of Ling Yufang and kicked his wrist. Xiao! The 3-foot swimming dragon sword flew out of his hand and was inserted into the ground. Lu Shangqing shook his head. This result, he wasn't surprised at all. To put it bluntly, because young city lord Ling had a powerful father, everyone respected him. Without this layer of relationship, he wouldn't have any sense of presence in the crowd. Damn it! Ling Yufang was furious. He had such a powerful sword and sword art, why couldn't he defeat a disciple of the sect of all times? This question was very simple. He had a good father. Su Xiaoma and the rest had a good patriarch. You have countless resources and rich martial arts. Sorry, these sect of all times disciples had all of that. If they wanted to find an advantage, Ling Yufang's identity as the young city lord could be used to show off. Of course. If they had to choose between being a young city lord and being a sect of all times disciple, Su Xiaoma and the rest would definitely choose the latter. Because in their hearts, a sect of all times disciple was a priceless treasure. Was it over? No. After Su Xiaoma kicked away Ling Yufang's weapon, he didn't give him a chance to surrender or jump off the stage. He gave him a heavy punch that made him dizzy. Then, he started to destroy him. Bang! 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 The spectators' mouths twitched. In the end, they couldn't bear to watch and turned their heads away. June Patriarch. Princess Red Lotus whispered, after all, he is the young city lord of Soaring Royal City. Just teach him a lesson. Don't go overboard. June Changshao said, it is because he is the young city lord that we have to be ruthless. This way, the world will know that the sect of all times is not to be trifled with. Princess Red Lotus was silent. Boom! Another heavy punch landed. Ling Yufang, who had been beaten up, tilted his head and fainted. His entire face was swollen. Even his parents might not be able to recognize him. Pa! Su Xiaoma clapped his hands and said, thank you for letting me win. Lu Shangqing and Gu Tuhong's expressions were ugly. However, they didn't say anything. After all, this was an arena battle. Since they had gone up, they could only blame themselves for being beaten up. Both of you. June Changshao said, if you still want to learn martial arts, you can continue to go up the stage. The sect of all times will not reject anyone. The experts of the 5 fourth-rate sects were silent. Even Wu Huang was defeated. The sect of all times was too strong. If they continued to go up the stage, they would only embarrass themselves. June Patriarch. Lu Shangqing cupped his hands and said, as expected of the top 3 sections. Today, we have learned a lot. We will not disturb you any further. We will take our leave first. After losing so many battles, Wu Huang didn't even win. What face did he have left? Therefore, it was best to leave. Forgive me for not sending you off. June Changshao cupped his hands and said. Lu Shangqing ordered his disciples to carry the unconscious Ling Yufang. Under the gaze of the martial practitioners of southwest Yangzhou, they left dejectedly. When they came, they were very arrogant. When they left, they were very embarrassed. Today, the 5 fourth-rate sects of the West Cloud State returned in defeat at the sect of all times. Today, a martial practitioner of southwest Yangzhou shouted from the bottom of his heart, June Patriarch is mighty. The sect of all times is mighty. June Patriarch is mighty. The sect of all times is mighty. Everyone shouted in unison. Their voices echoed in the sky. The words unyielding iron bones were written on the plaque hanging above the main hall. Under the sunlight, it shone with a dazzling light. June Patriarch. Princess Red Lotus smiled and said, "If my father knew about this, he would be very happy." June Changshao didn't hear what she said. He also didn't hear the shouts of the crowd. This was because his ears were covered by the sound of the mission completion notification. Chapter 581. Ding! Side quest completed, obtained 5,000 contribution points. Ding! Contribution points, 1500020000. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the side quest and triggering the hidden reward. Obtained Experience Talisman X3, obtained Holy Rank Aptitude Transformation Liquid X1. June Changshao was overjoyed. This side quest actually gave him 3 Experience Talisman. However, at this moment, another notification sounded in his ears. Congratulations to the host for triggering the hidden goods, obtaining the Sword Path Aptitude Liquid, Array Formation Aptitude Liquid, and the right to purchase the Martial King Pill Formula. June Changshao was stunned. In the next second, he was so excited that he almost flew away. The right to purchase the Sword Path Formation Aptitude Liquid, this was definitely not going to be great. Also, the Martial King Pill Formula. He couldn't take it anymore. June Patriarch was so excited that his little heart almost stopped beating. Schwa! He hurriedly opened the shopping list, and sure enough, he saw 2 types of Aptitude Liquid and Martial King Pill Formula appear out of thin air. Ha! Ahahaha! June Changshao squatted on the ground, covering his face as he laughed wantonly. He had the style of Tang Bohu's Star Master in Autumn Fragrance. Princess Red Lotus said, "June Patriarch, what's wrong with you?" "Princess." Li Qingyang said seriously, "Patriarch sometimes can't help but laugh." June Changshao suddenly laughed out loud for no reason. As a disciple, he had seen many times and was already used to it. "Oh." Princess Red Lotus replied, and thought to herself, "Is this an illness?" If it was an illness, June Changshao would rather be terminally ill and incurable. 10 years ago, City Lord Mu brought experts to the West Cloud State, but in the end, he was shaved bald. He was so angry that he vomited blood on the spot, and it took him a long time to recover. That was a shameful battle. For a long time, City Lord Mu and the Southwest Yangzhou martial cultivators could not raise their heads. Every time they thought about it, they would feel extremely pained. Until today. At the foot of Iron Bone Mountain, June Changshao and his disciples had shaved the heads of the 5 great sects of the West Cloud Province. They had even defeated a martial emperor and brutally abused the Lingting royal city's young city lord. For a moment, many martial artists rushed to spread the news, as if the whole world was celebrating. All right. In the Long family of Longyang City, Long Patian slammed the table and stood up after hearing about this matter. He laughed loudly and said, "June Patriarch has avenged our Southwest Yangzhou. Teacher June is too amazing. I really want to graduate quickly and join the sect of all times." The students of the Heavenly Mandate Academy were also in a heated discussion. Their admiration for June Changshao grew even stronger. Ha ha ha. Yi Tianxing laughed and said, "Awesome, awesome." Although he was a certified dojo master and had to remain neutral, he had always lived in Southwest Yangzhou. Now that the sects of the inner prefecture had beaten up the sects of the outer prefecture, they would definitely be delighted. Furthermore, in the past, it was always the sects from their own province that were bullied by others. This time, it was the other way around. They were bullied by outsiders right in front of their own home. This was definitely refreshing. I've decided. Yi Tianqing said, for the next Dragon-Tiger battle, the sect of all times will represent southwest Yangzhou. This, Elder Zhou, Elder Zhen, and the others were stunned. They did not expect that the dojo master, who had been hesitating all this time, would suddenly make a decision. Elder Zhou. Yi Tianqing said, make a trip to the sect of all times and inform them personally. Let Jun Patriarch prepare actively for this in the next 2 years. Yes. Elder Zhou hurriedly left. Yi Tianqing put one hand on the table and murmured, Jun Patriarch, I hope that you can represent the certification dojo in southwest Yangzhou and achieve good results in the Dragon-Tiger battle 2 years later. The discussion about the sect of all times in the outside world was getting more and more intense. As the person involved, Jun Changshao locked himself in his room and took out 3 experience talismans. Smack! Whoosh whoosh, the psionic power in the 2 spiritual nuclei instantly boiled. A moment later, the aura emanating from Jun Changshao's body was even more intense. His realm had also advanced from level 4 to level 5. It took a lot of time and contribution points to break through to level 4. Now that he had advanced with just 1 experience talisman, it was simply too awesome. Smack! Smack! Jun Changshao crushed the other 2 experience talismans. His realm had advanced from level 5 to level 7. I'm Jun Changshao. Walking out of the room, he exhaled and said, I didn't cheat. The system said, a decent person. Bang! Arriving at the training room, Jun Changshao punched the testing machine. The strength displayed was 11.5 million gene. It had broken through 10 million. Smack! Jun Changshao covered his face and laughed again. He had only been at level 2 meridian opening when he transmigrated. Now, he had advanced to level 7 King of Sword and Martial Arts with an explosive strength of 11.5 million gene. This was his growth. This was his change. He asked loudly who else. Jun Patriarch was floating. He was floating so much that his feet left the ground. The floating virus had been turned off. However, although the contribution points given for a side mission were not much, the rewards were too generous. The system said, this is because of the 2.0 version of the system. Some elite side missions are not inferior to the previous epic missions. Jun Changshao said, in that case, after entering the peak of the Sword Martial King and triggering the epic mission, the rewards will be even more generous? That's right. The system paused for a moment and added, similarly, the difficulty will also increase. Oh. Jun Changshao replied and opened the shopping list. He clicked on the beginner grade sword path aptitude liquid. He glanced through the description and directly placed it under price, 5,000 contribution points. Damn! A beginner grade is so expensive. He hurriedly clicked on the beginner grade formation aptitude liquid. In the end, the price was also 5,000 contribution points. Jun Patriarch was speechless. Now that he had 15,000 contribution points, he felt that he was filthy rich. If he were to buy this kind of aptitude liquid, he could only buy 3 bottles at most. This is too much. Jun Changshao clicked on the Martial King pill formula. It introduced that after refining this pill and consuming it, a martial artist could directly break through to Martial King from the peak of Wuzong. Awesome! Were there any side effects? Of course. The side effects were clearly written. Martial King was already an extremely high level in the mortal continent. In order to maintain the balance of the heavens and earth, a martial artist would lose 100 years of their lifespan after consuming it. Jun Changshao said, this is using one's lifespan to break through. The price of the Martial King pill formula was quite reasonable, only 2,000 contribution points. However, considering that it would cost 100 years of his lifespan, Jun Patriarch did not immediately decide whether to buy it or not. Instead, he began to investigate. Qing Yang, if you were given a chance to break through to Martial King, would you be willing to give up 100 years of your lifespan? I'm willing. Zueji, what about you? Patriarch, of course I'm willing. Why? After breaking through to the next level, one's lifespan will increase by a lot. Losing 100 years of lifespan is nothing. That's right. Jun Changshao slapped his forehead and said in realization, when a martial artist breaks through to the next level, their lifespan will increase as well. What's there to worry about losing 100 years of lifespan? Living beings in the falling star continent had a long lifespan to begin with. Sacrificing 100 years in exchange for becoming a martial king was not excessive at all. The system broke down, so what's the use of the martial king pill side effects? Chapter 582. After consuming 100 years and breaking through to the martial king realm, his lifespan would increase again. There was no change at all with this reduction and replenishment. Buy. Jun Changshao spent 2,000 contribution points to buy the Wu King pill formula, which was automatically matched to the pill pavilion. Just as he was about to check what medicinal herbs he needed, Su Xiaomo reported, Patriarch, Elder Zhou from the certification headquarters is here to see you. Jun Changshao said, please. Elder Zhou entered the main hall and first said some pleasantries, then told him the purpose of his visit. Dragon Tiger Hegemony? Jun Changshao had never heard of it before. The system said, this is the highest standard sect competition in the Falling Star continent. Oh. Jun Changshao shook his head, and said, Elder Zhou, I only want to peacefully develop the sect, I have no interest in this kind of competition. Ahem. He was not interested. If there was a mission, he would be more active than anyone else. Jun Patriarch. Elder Zhou said, the sect of all times can represent the southwest Yangzhou to participate in the Dragon Tiger Hegemony competition that is held once every 5 years. That is definitely a supreme honor. Does Elder Zhou think that my sect is lacking in glory right now? No, it was very sufficient. At this time, the sect of all times in the southwest Yangzhou was definitely who didn't know you? Not to mention. When the news of defeating the 5 sects of the West Cloud State spread out, it would definitely cause a heated discussion in the other provinces. Sigh. Elder Zhou sighed, and said, since that's the case, I can only bring the 50,000 spirit stones back to the head. Wait. Jun Changshao leaned forward and narrowed his eyes, 50,000 spirit stones? Elder Zhou said, the head will use his own money to give the sect of all times 50,000 spirit stones for the development of the sect, so that we can deal with the Dragon Tiger Hegemony competition in 2 years. Since Jun Patriarch is not participating, I can only bring it back. Pa. Jun Changshao slammed the table, and said, it is an honor for my sect of all times to represent the southwest Yangzhou. Elder Zhou, please go back and tell the head that Jun is willing to lead the disciples to participate in the Dragon Tiger Hegemony competition. Elder Zhou was stunned. At that moment, he felt as though there was a light flickering behind Jun Patriarch's head, as though he was a sage who was delivering salvation to all living beings. Bah! The system's disdainful voice echoed in his ears for a long time. Jun Changshao had no reason to reject the sect of all times' participation in the Dragon Arc Hegemony tournament since the certification center valued it so much. It had nothing to do with spirit stones. It was related to the fact that he was from the southwestern Yangzhou. After sending Elder Zhou off, Jun Changshao inspected the space ring that contained the spirit stones and felt very pleased. Patriarch. Jiangye asked, are you really going to participate in the Dragon Tiger battle for hegemony? Okay, Jun Changshao replied. Jiangye said solemnly, this is the Grand Sect tournament of the highest scale in the Starfall continent. Countless sects will participate. It is said that there will even be disciples from first-rate sects participating. Really? Jun Changxiao's interest was immediately piqued. If not for the spirit stones, he really did not plan to participate. However, since first-rate sects were participating, it would definitely be a grand event. If that was the case, how could the sect of all times be absent? The Dragon-Tiger Battle for Hegemony was the grand Sect tournament of the highest scale in the Starfall continent. It was held once every 5 years, and there were still 2 years before the next one. Southwestern Yangzhou would send a sect to participate every year. However, because their strength could not compare to the other states, they only had one spot. They would be eliminated in the first round in all the previous years. So? Jun Chengshao asked. Jiang Ye said, actually, the sects that southwestern Yangzhou sent out every year are quite strong. Just last year, they sent the only third-rate sect. In the end, they were defeated in the first round by a fourth-rate sect. It can't be. Jun Chengshao said in surprise, a third-rate sect can't beat a fourth-rate sect? Jiang Ye said, in theory, a third-rate sect is stronger than a fourth-rate sect. However, the sect that represented southwestern Yangzhou was unlucky and encountered a fourth-rate sect from the Zhongzuan state. In the end, they were defeated miserably. Jun Chengshao was silent. So it was a fourth-rate sect from the Zhongzuan state. That was understandable. Although the forces in the Starfall continent were divided into levels, what really determined how strong they were was still geographical factors. The heaven and earth attributes were extremely strong, and there were outstanding talents in the big states. The sects born in the big states would definitely be stronger than the sects in the remote areas. As the center of the continent, the Zhongzuan state was definitely full of experts and rich in resources. Not to mention a fourth-rate sect defeating a third-rate sect from another state, even a sixth-rate sect could defeat a fifth-rate sect. So, the sect's level was only a standard. Whether it was strong or not depended on where it came from. For example, the 5 fourth-rate sects from the West Cloud state that came to challenge the sect of all times would definitely be stronger than the fourth-rate sect from southwestern Yangzhou. That was exactly the case. When Jun Chengshao and his disciples defeated them and shaved their heads, the martial artists in the state would be extremely excited. The value of this was very high. It seems like, Jun Chengshao touched his nose and said, it's a little difficult to win the championship of the Dragon-Tiger Battle for Hegemony. It's more than difficult. Jiang Ye said seriously, with the current strength of the sect of all times, it's definitely as difficult as ascending to the heavens. It's okay, it's okay. Jun Chengshao said, there are still 2 years to make the sect stronger. When the time comes to participate in this kind of grand sect competition, we must get first place. Jiang Ye was dumbfounded. The Ning brothers were also dumbfounded. Getting first place in the Dragon-Tiger Battle for Hegemony, this goal was not ordinary. On the martial arts practice field, 10,000 disciples stood in an orderly manner, their aura like a rainbow. Jun Chengshao stood at the entrance of the main hall and said, 2 years later, do you have the confidence to win the championship of the Dragon-Tiger Battle for Hegemony? Yes. All the disciples shouted in unison. Okay. Jun Chengshao said, dismissed, cultivate. Swoosh. Sitting in the study, he pulled out the panel of the elixir pavilion and clicked on the martial emperor pill. The required herbs immediately appeared. Good heavens! There were more than 50 of them. And from the names of the herbs, they were all very expensive. Jun Chengshao said, as expected, it's not easy to let a disciple break through to Martial King. He wrote down the herbs on a piece of paper and handed it to the procurement hall to purchase. Patriarch Su Xiaoma walked in. Jun Chengshao placed the reward of the mission on the table and said, take this and improve your spiritual root. Su Xiaoma was happy and said, thank you, Patriarch. As he spoke, he opened the bottle and swallowed it. His spiritual root advanced from supreme to sacred. In this way, there were already 4 disciples of the Eternal Sect who had upgraded their spiritual roots to the level of divine grade. A few days later, the people from the procurement hall returned one after another, but they did not manage to buy any of the herbs needed to refine the martial emperor pill. However, he bought a batch of seeds from the AI family. Elder Wei. Jun Chengshao said, how long will it take to grow them? Elder Wei pondered for a moment and said, the seeds provided by the patriarch are all very rare. I'm afraid it will take at least half a year for them to mature. Half a year. Although it was a bit long, Jun Changshao said, then I'll have to trouble Elder Wei. Patriarch. At this moment, Li Luoqiu came in to report, our spies have spread to the Lu prefecture in the northeast, and we have some bad news. Speak. Jun Changshao said. Li Luoqiu hesitated for a moment and said, Lu Qianqian is wanted by the Extreme Coldness Palace in the Lu prefecture in the northeast. She even fought with the other party's experts in the Boundless Ice Sea. Whoosh within the main hall, a violent sword martial aura surged out and instantly filled the entire sect. Many disciples were shocked. What's going on? Su Xiaoma and the others were confused. Li Qingyang frowned and said, the patriarch is angry. Shui Rengui. Jun Changxiao's angry voice sounded in the sect, gather 1,000 soldiers and follow me to the Lu prefecture in the northeast. Yes. Whoosh. 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 In an instant, the cultivating members of the Wolf Rider Hall were fully armed. Chapter 583. The members of the Wolf Rider Hall, who were still cultivating, instantly entered a state of combat readiness. Perhaps they were affected by the patriarch's aura, riding on the hurricane wolf, their faces were filled with a strong murderous aura. Long Xiang, Yang Yuhua, and the others used the cloud-traversing steps to rush over and landed neatly on the martial arts practice field. Including Yixingqian, the 20 inner disciples of the sect of all times were all in position. Senior brother. Su Xiaoma whispered, what's going on? Li Qingyang said, senior sister is being bullied in Luzhou in the northeast. What? Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and the others were instantly furious. How dare they bully our senior sister? They must have eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts. Screech, the cry of an eagle came from Mount Iron Bone. The Demon Ridge Black Eagle, which was as big as a mountain, spread its wings and rose. It was defined as the sect of all times' guardian spirit beast. It would not appear unless the sect was in danger. Puchi. Puchi. The Demon Ridge Black Eagle hovered above the martial arts practice field. Whoosh. Jun Changshao walked out of the hall angrily, then flew up and landed on the head of the contract beast. He said in a deep voice, let's go. Awu the disciples rode on the hurricane wolf and turned into streams of light, galloping along the mountain path. Screech. The Demon Ridge Black Eagle flew into the endless sky. This time, Jun Patriarch not only brought 1,000 wolf riders, but also the Ning brothers and all the inner disciples to Luzhou in the northeast. The formation could be said to be quite large. Jiang Yi did not go. He was in charge of managing the sect. Hall Master Li and some of the members of the Drizzle Hall also followed. Their goal was to gather information faster and find out Lu Qianqian's location. On this day, the elites of the sect of all times were all out. Dragons had reverse scales, and those who touched them would die. Every disciple of the sect of all times was Jun Changxiao's reverse scale. Therefore, whoever dared to bully them would have to pay a painful price. Moreover, and it was Lu Qianqian, her eldest disciple. It could be imagined that when Jun Changshao brought his disciples to Lu province in the northeast, it would definitely set off a bloody storm. Dean. In the Heavenly Mandate Academy, the vice headmaster hurriedly came to see him and said, I've just received news that Jun Changshao has left Qingyang County with a large group of disciples. Oh. Situ Haoyun asked, where did he go? The vice president said, judging from the route, it seems to be heading to Luzhou in the northeast. Luzhou in the northeast? Situ Haoyun frowned and asked, why are we going there? Dean. Princess Red Lotus hurried over and said with a frown, I just received news that the eldest disciple of the sect of all times, Lu Qianqian, is wanted by the Extreme Cold Palace in the northeastern Lu prefecture. The vice principal said, "Could it be that the kid brought people to Lu province in the northeast because of this?" Situ Haoyun frowned and said, "I'm afraid that's not good." "What?" In the certification headquarters, Yi Tianxing, who had received the news, stood up and said in shock, "June Patriarch brought people to Lu province in the northeast with a murderous aura." "Yes." Elder Jin said, "It seems that the disciples of the sect have been bullied." Yi Tianxing frowned. He knew that Jun Changshao was very protective of his disciples. Back when the evil sects of Huayang County bullied his disciples, he directly killed 4 of them. This time, it was normal for him to bring people over when his disciples were being bullied in Lu province in the northeast. "That's Lu province in the northeast." Yi Tianxing broke down and said, if he rashly brought his disciples over, it might affect the forces of the entire province. "No, no." He hurriedly ordered, "The 4 of you go quickly. Don't let anything happen to June Patriarch." "Yes." On this day, the cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy and the certification headquarters left the Heavenly Mandate Imperial City and headed to Lu province in the northeast. "Did you hear? Yesterday, someone saw a large group of disciples of the sect of all times galloping on wolf beasts in the wilderness. It looked like they were going to war." The warriors of Yangzhou in the southwest were discussing. The sect of all times had become famous recently. Their every move would be infinitely exaggerated. The demon clan and the branch of the murdering shrine had also received the news. They knew that the sect of all times was going to Lu province in the northeast to seek justice for their disciples. "Humph." The branch leader sneered and said, "That guy thinks that he can do whatever he wants in the Falling Star continent with the protection of the 2 major organizations?" Although Lu province in the northeast is a land of ice and snow, the ice element is extremely strong. The extreme cold palace was built entirely by ice element martial arts cultivators. Although it is only a 4th-rate sect, it might not be weaker than a 3rd-rate sect. One of his subordinates said, if the sect of all times were to go there unscrupulously, they would definitely be beaten black and blue. "That's why." The branch leader smiled and said, "He is still too young. He gets carried away every time he encounters something. In the end, he will be the one who gets hurt." However, being taught a lesson by a sect from another province can also extinguish that guy's arrogance and let him understand that there is always someone better than him. The sect of all times was related to the Heavenly Mandate Academy and the Certification Academy. The 2 branches of the evil sects could not afford to offend them. They had always been invisible, but they would definitely hide in the dark and enjoy watching the other party embarrass themselves. Their happy times were running out. In June Patriarch's little notebook, there were still debts owed by the 2 evil sections. When he had time, he would definitely settle the debts with interest. Whoosh whoosh, the north wind whistled, and it was freezing cold. In an ice field, there was only one inn in a radius of 100 miles. At this moment, warriors were drinking hot wine and discussing recent events. Creak. The door was pushed open, and a white-clothed man walked in amidst the fluttering snow. Then, he sat by the window. "Sir, do you want a meal or a room?" "A meal." "What would you like to eat?" "Anything." The waiter did not ask any more questions. Soon, a few dishes and a pot of wine were served. The warriors in the inn only glanced at him and continued their discussion. Their conversation never left the mysterious woman in white. "Brother Hao." Someone was puzzled and said, "The recent events have been widely spread in Luzhou. What is going on?" The middle-aged man called Brother Hao said, "If this matter is investigated further, the place where the conflict occurred is here." "Here?" Many warriors were confused. Brother Hao took a sip of wine and said, "The woman in white first appeared at the inn, and then she sat, yes, she sat right where this young friend is sitting. She chopped off the palm of a martial cultivator and incurred the wrath of the Snow Track Valley. Then, she was hunted down by them, and in the end, the extreme cold palace was involved." Snow Track Valley. The man in white sitting by the window asked, "Where is it?" Brother Hao smiled and said, "Young friend, you look a little unfamiliar. You don't seem to be from the ice field." The man in white turned his head and said, "Snow Track Valley, where is it?" His voice and eyes were very cold. Everyone felt their scalp go numb and their feet shivered when they saw it. The smile on Brother Hao's face froze. His voice trembled as he said, Go east along the ice field. It's about 500 miles. The man in white retracted his cold gaze and took a sip of hot wine. He threw down a tael of silver and got up to leave. "Brother Hao." A warrior whispered, "This guy is a little strange. He can make me feel fear just by looking at him. He must be an expert." Brother Hao said with a serious face. "A wolf. A wolf." Suddenly, there were wolf howls outside. Brother Hao and the others hurried to the window and saw a group of warriors riding wolf beasts galloping toward the east. Chapter 584. 500 miles to the east of the icefield, there was a valley surrounded by icebergs on 3 sides. Inside, there were rows upon rows of buildings. Snow Track Valley. A 7th-rate sect in Lu State in the northeast. Although the level of this sect was not high, they had one major characteristic, which was the taming of snowfield wolves. Seeing people riding snowfield wolves on the road, they were most likely people from Snow Track Valley. At this moment, many wolf beasts were gathered in this sect's martial arts field. However, they were not snowfield wolves, but the more ferocious and powerful hurricane wolves. They spat out wind vortexes and were very arrogant. Those tamed snowfield wolves were now like little lambs huddled together, shivering in fear. Bang! The bullet flew out and shattered the plaque with the words, Snow Track Valley, engraved on it. Jun Changshao sat on a chair, twirling the desert eagle with his fingers, and said lightly, "From today onwards, Snow Track Valley will be removed from the martial arts world." This sentence could be said to be domineering. Plop! The Valley Master of Snow Track Valley knelt on the ground, his eyes wide open and completely dead. Before he died, he knew that the other party was the patriarch of the sect of all times in Yangzhou in the southwest. He also knew that the reason why the sect was destroyed was because they had offended the woman in white. Plop! A few elders of Snow Track Valley fell into a pool of blood. From their vision, they could see the disciples of Snow Track Valley lying on the ground in disorder. Li Qingyang, Su Xiaoma, and the other disciples held the cold light sword in their hands, which was already stained with blood. Their faces were expressionless, as if they were emotionless killers. Whoosh whoosh monstrous flames burned in the valley, adding a bit of glamour to the snow-white world. No one would have thought that on such a peaceful day, Snow Track Valley, which had been established for nearly 100 years, would be suddenly destroyed. Patriarch. Li Luoqiu walked over quickly and said, "I just received news that Lu Qianqian, subconsciously, she shut her mouth. She knew that if she told him the latest information, it would only anger this man even more." "Speak," Jun Changshao said. Li Luoqiu was silent for a moment, and said, "She might have been caught by the Extreme Cold Palace." Extreme Cold Palace's location is confirmed? Yes. Let's go. Schwa. Schwa. The members of the Wolf Rider Hall rode their hurricane wolves and charged towards the Extreme Cold Palace. Why is the Snow Trail Valley on fire? After Jun Changshao left with his disciples, some of the bolder martial artists entered the valley one after another. When they saw the burnt corpses on the martial stage, all of them widened their eyes in shock. Oh my God! Snow Track Valley has been destroyed. Many martial artists felt their blood boil, and they could not help but spit out blood. Their eyes were filled with shock. Chapter 585. The sound of the cannons firing was as loud as ever. The martial artists with lower cultivation levels who were closer to the cannons vomited blood. Although those with higher cultivation levels could suppress their surging qi and blood, they could only hear buzzing sounds in their ears. Italian cannons were terrifying. If Li Qingyang were to fire the cannons, it would be more appropriate. Although he was not the 2nd Battalion commander, he was the second disciple of the sect of all times. The sound of the cannons reverberated in the air and did not dissipate for a long time. The martial artists of Lu Zhou who were affected all had fear and shock in their eyes. In their field of vision, wisps of green smoke rose from the long pipes that looked like siege weapons. Dense spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the ground. Xiao Ziji, who was the 2nd Battalion commander, had already covered his ears with his hands. However, he was still staggering and turning in circles. It was obvious that even though he was the closest to the cannons, he could not help but feel a little dizzy. He had reached the peak of Wuzong, and his body was so strong. How could he not be able to withstand the sound of the cannons? When he came to the extreme cold palace, the patriarch had given him a few crystal cores that contained black spirit energy. Those were the demonic crystal cores he had obtained in the Demon Ridge Valley. Not only were they of high quality, but they also contained terrifying demonic energy. Once they were gathered into cannons and fired by the modified cannons, the power would be unimaginable. This was not possible. After the bombardment, the area around the extreme cold palace was filled with a chilling, eerie aura. It was easy for people to mistakenly think that a high-level evil cultivator had used a powerful evil technique. However, the sect protecting array of the extreme cold palace was distorted under the bombardment of the modified cannons with demonic energy. However, it quickly recovered and did not break. Patriarch Zhen Dejuan, who was accompanying him, said telepathically, "The sect protecting array of the extreme cold palace has reached supreme grade." This level was very high. It was comparable to Wu Huang's level. Is that so? Jun Changshao raised his hand. Crack. Xiao Ziji, who had gradually adapted, kicked open the cannons and took out 2 demonic crystal cores to charge them as quickly as possible. The lips of the upper echelon of the extreme cold palace twitched. The martial artists of Lu Zhou in the northeast who were affected were so frightened that they hurriedly retreated. They subconsciously covered their ears and sealed their sense of hearing. Little friend. The palace lord of the extreme coldness palace hurriedly said, "Let's talk nicely, fire. Fire the cannons, run." Jun Changxiao's angry voice reverberated in the sky. Whoosh as he spoke, the 5th grade Wu Huang's cultivation was fully unleashed, and then he flew up, and powerful spiritual energy erupted like a tsunami. As the leader of a sect, it was impossible for him to hold back at this time. Fight. He had to fight. Boom. The palace master of the extreme coldness palace blasted his palm into the void, and the spiritual energy in the sky gathered and instantly condensed into 4 palm prints, pressing down from different directions at the same speed. For Spirit's elephant palm. This is the trump card of the palace master of the extreme coldness palace. The warriors of Northeast Lu State exclaimed. At the same time, they understood that the palace master of the extreme coldness palace had used his trump card right from the start, and now he was completely furious. Screech the black eagle of the Devil's Ridge raised its head and screeched. It suddenly flapped its wings, and the space was suddenly stirred up. Immediately, black feathers shot out like sharp swords. Boom! 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 In an instant, the light of the sharp feathers collided with the 4 palm prints, and the sky kept exploding. The dazzling light flickered, stirred up the wind, and ruthlessly disturbed the earth, shocking many martial cultivators. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, Yi Xingqian flew over and landed on the martial arts field of the extreme coldness palace. He had already taken out the cold light sword in his hand, and his eyes were cold as he said, "A bunch of trash." Whoosh whoosh, an elder of the extreme coldness palace flew over, and without saying a word, he gathered vast spiritual energy and punched out violently with his fists. Yi Xingqian's lips curled into a disdainful smile. The cold light sword in his hand cut through the void, first breaking the elder's fist print, and then quickly approached him, using the linear speed formula in an instant. Whoosh! 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 Sword chi intertwined like shadows and light. Ta! Yi Xingqian stood straight, and the cold light sword slightly tilted down, blood gathering at the tip of the sword. The elder of the extreme coldness palace who was standing behind him tilted his head, and blood spurted out from his chest. He fell to the ground with a loud bang. Die! Whoosh! Whoosh! Two elders of the extreme coldness palace rushed over from both sides, forming an explosion of energy. However, before they could attack, their expressions changed drastically, and they quickly formed a defensive wall in front of them. Bang! 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 The bullets hit the barrier. Although they did not shake the two martial kings, the impact of the bullets sent them flying. Crack! At the ruins of the mountain gate that had been blasted open. Xiao Ziji smoothly pulled the bolt and set up the AWM sniper rifle. Leaning against the 8x scope, he said in a cold voice, "Everyone, don't move." The two martial kings who were sent flying felt their blood boiling, and their expressions were extremely ugly. What was that in his hand? How could it produce such a strong force? Whoosh! Whoosh! Su Xiaoma and Li Fei used the cloud-treading steps and flew over. The two of them landed behind Yi Xingqian and shouted in a voice that made goosebumps rise. "Senior sister, we're here. We won't forgive anyone who bullies you." Yes. The people from the sect of all times were here. At this moment, anyone who bullied Lu Qianqian, regardless of whether Jun Changshao agreed or not, her junior brothers and junior sisters would not agree. Even if they were enemies with the entire world. The falling star continent, which had been peaceful for too long, needed such impulsive and hot-blooded forces to inject their souls and vitality. Chapter 586. Senior sister, we're here. Whoever bullies you, we won't let them off. When Su Xiaoma and Li Fei shouted these words, they disturbed the sky and lingered for a long time. Awoo! Awoo! The hurricane wolves flew over. Under the leadership of Zhong Yi, 1,000 wolf riders stood on the extreme coldness palace's martial arts field like mighty masters. At that moment, tens of thousands of extreme coldness palace disciples rushed out from the inner court. However, in terms of aura, they couldn't be compared to the disciples of the sect of all times. Because these people all straightened their backs and exuded a strong aura that could only be described as unyielding. Although the sect had changed its name. But the principle of being unyielding people and doing unyielding things would never be erased. Amazing. The experts who were hiding in the dark to protect Jun Patriarch looked at the imposing aura of the disciples of the sect of all times with admiration. This sect had just risen and didn't have any cowardice in the face of a fourth-rate sect. How did they train? As martial cultivators of the southwest Yangzhou, under the influence of the aura of the disciples of the sect of all times, a strong sense of pride suddenly rose in their hearts. Who said that the strength of our prefecture was weak? Who said that the strength of our prefecture could be trampled on? Today, I'll let you see the rising supernova of the southwest's Yangzhou, a top 3 sect. Whoosh whoosh in the sky, the energy gradually dissipated. Jun Changxiao's eyes flashed coldly as he stood on the black eagle of the Demon Ridge. The palace master of the extreme coldness palace had an extremely ugly expression. Just now, she had used her trump card, but it was easily broken by that eagle beast. Its strength was probably not weaker than her. Nonsense. Without enough combat strength, why would Jun Patriarch rush over so recklessly? Your extreme coldness palace has a martial king, so does my sect of all times. Your extreme coldness palace has Wu Huang, so does my sect of all times. What was there to be afraid of? Beat him. Jun Changshao raised his hand and pointed at the main hall. He said coldly, "Disciples, listen to my order. Flatten the extreme coldness palace." "Yes." All the disciples roared in unison, their voices shaking the 9 heavens. Clang clang clang. Long Xiang and the others took out their cold-edged sword, overlord spear, and even their iron shields. Strong killing intent surged out from their bodies. Li Tian and Viper carried their sniper rifles on their backs. They had already occupied the highest vantage point. The bullets were loaded, the safety pins were pulled, and they locked onto the crowd opposite them. "Brother Snake. I'm not nervous at all. I only hope that you won't hit a fellow disciple." The disciples of the sect of all times were filled with murderous intent. The palace master of the extreme coldness palace said in a low voice, "Anyone who offends the extreme coldness palace can forget about leaving alive." The mountain gate had been forcefully broken open, and their own elders had been killed. As long as they had the courage, they would never compromise. Shwa! Shwa! In an instant, more than 10 martial king realm elders of the extreme coldness palace rushed out of the main hall with powerful spiritual energy. The violent energy caused space to distort. Swoosh! Whoosh! The Ning brothers flew over, waving their arms as they stood. Blazing blades of flame instantly condensed, and with a force of 10,000 pounds, they blasted over. Not good. Dodge! The elders of the extreme coldness palace cried out in alarm. Unfortunately, they were still one step too late. The 2 martial kings couldn't dodge in time and were directly hit by the blazing blades. A shocking wound appeared on their chests, and they fell onto the stone platform of the main hall like cannonballs. The blazing blade of the red sky, which was bought from the shop, displayed a terrifying combat strength when used by Ning Duxing and Ning Duzue. Ta! Yi Xingqian took a step forward, and the floor under his feet caved in. His right fist, which was filled with spiritual energy, suddenly punched out in the air, and directly blasted a martial king who rushed over. Bang! That elder crashed into the stone platform. His entire body caved in, and his right fist was broken. He also fainted on the verge of death. Another instant kill. Although Yi Aojiao had just entered the martial king realm, her strength was not inferior to that of a 4th or 5th grade martial king. Boom! Boom! At this moment, bullets shot past him and accurately hit another elder from the extreme cold palace who was attacking him, sending him flying. Xiao Ziji pulled the bolt, and the corner of his mouth raised into a smile. "Tsk," Yi Xingqian said indifferently, meddling in other people's business. Although Xiao Ziji's help was obviously superfluous, Night Emperor's state of mind changed a little when a fellow disciple helped him in this kind of situation. Sometimes. He often thought that when he returned to the peak, he would seek revenge from his enemies. Perhaps they would also accompany him and face danger together, just like how they came to save Lu Qianqian today. Yi Aojiao had really changed. With his previous personality, he would not have such a strange idea. "Senior brother." Zhou Hong appeared behind him and said, "Get out of the way." While thinking, Yi Xingqian leaned to the side, and gave way to the front. Clang! Sword momentum, graceful. Whoosh! In the void, sword light flashed. At that moment, space seemed to be directly torn apart, and an extremely powerful sword might was emitted. Puchi! The sound of blood splashing could be heard. That elder of the extreme coldness palace who rushed over was directly cut in half at the waist by the unparalleled sword energy. Sword King! The eyes of the experts hiding in the dark were filled with shock. That disciple called Yi Xingqian was a martial king, which was enough to shock them. They did not expect that there would be another disciple who was a sword king. After Zhou Hong made his move, the hidden experts were not the only ones who were shocked. The expressions of the extreme coldness palace elders who were eager to give it a try also changed. The Sword King. The most unreasonable existence in the king level. Even if their strength was higher, it would not be surprising if they were killed in an instant. The gaze of the extreme coldness palace master gradually turned gloomy. First, he flew over on an eagle beast comparable to Wu Huang. Then, he used siege weapons to blast open the mountain gate. Now, the people he brought were so powerful. He really did not come with good intentions. Kill! Zhou Yi shouted. Howl! Howl! Thousands of wolf riders drove their hurricane wolves, dragging a blue light behind them, and charged forward like a sharp sword. In this battle, they were facing tens of thousands of disciples of a fourth-rate sect. They were definitely stronger than the White Tiger Corps, but they still carried out a crazy slaughter with invincibility. There was no other reason. After a period of training and cultivation, the strength of the members of the Wolf Rider Hall had greatly improved. Boom! Boom! The light of martial techniques and weapons shone on the training ground with thousands of years of history. The disciples of the extreme coldness palace fell one after another, like weeds being harvested by the wolf riders. Speaking of which, as a fourth-rate sect, what about the inner disciples or direct disciples of the extreme coldness palace? Yes. They were currently being beaten up by Sima Zhongda and Cui Bujian. The stronger ones would be dealt with by Long Xiang, Song Xianzhou, and the others. In short, the top disciples of the fourth-rate sect were completely beaten up by the disciples of the sect of all times. The core disciples, Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji, were already fighting with the martial king elders. They did not care at all. Difference. This was the difference. The hidden experts in charge of protection twitched the corners of their mouths. The few main disciples of the sect of all times, with their peak Wuzong cultivation, were actually on par with the martial king elders. This was too frightening. Bang! 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 On the commanding heights, Li Tiantian fired frequently. The bullets brushed past the heads of his fellow disciples, killing the stronger disciples of the extreme coldness palace on the spot. The Ning brothers' robes fluttered without wind. They used all kinds of martial techniques and tangled with the martial king elders. Not only were they not at a disadvantage, they were completely suppressing their opponents. The situation was one-sided. Jun Changshao raised one hand and the green dragon crescent blade appeared out of nowhere. He said with a cold gaze, "Extreme coldness palace master, let's fight." Wu Shi jumped, as if he wanted to stand shoulder to shoulder with the sun. Whoosh! The mighty and extraordinary soul of Wu Sheng appeared instantly, flashing with colorful lights. The 7th grade martial king swordsman and the sword will merged into the green dragon crescent blade and slashed 4 times in a row. Crack, crack, crack! The violent blade energy tore through the air, whistling with the sound of a dragon's roar. The expression of the extreme coldness palace master changed greatly. At this moment, he had to face it head-on. If he chose to dodge, the palace behind him that had stood in the wind and rain for thousands of years would no longer exist. Chapter 587. When Wu Huang of the West Cloud State came to fight, Jun Changshao activated Wu Xing's soul and the 5 elements, but he could not win. In the end, he had no choice but to use the all-returning swords. Until today. He, who had advanced 3 grades in a row, once again activated the green dragon crescent blade. When he swung the blade, the power that erupted was completely different from before. Crack! Crack! Space was directly torn apart by the 5 elements blade aura. The violent spiritual energy and sword momentum shook the sky and shocked all living beings. The extreme coldness palace master exclaimed, "Sword! Sword and martial king!" Thud! There was no time for him to think. Wu Huang fully activated his cultivation. He suddenly blasted the void with his palms and shouted, "9th level chaotic prime, extreme coldness." Hum! Hum! In an instant, the space above the main hall trembled violently. Then, it transformed into a Tai Chi pattern formed by the ice element, forming a barrier similar to a defensive barrier. The sect's ultimate martial art. The martial cultivators in the distance exclaimed in unison. The 9th-level Chaotic Prime, Extreme Coldness Palace, was a very advanced sacred ice element defensive martial art. It was also known as the sect's ultimate martial art. Powerful sects all had their ultimate martial arts. However, the sect of all times did not. Because other than the early low-level martial arts, the current 7 Mystic Rays Break, Red Sky Flame Slash, and other martial arts could be used as the sect's ultimate martial arts. The 9th-level Chaotic Prime, Extreme Coldness Palace, materialized into an ice element Tai Chi pattern, exuding a heavy aura. The Extreme Coldness Palace master's face was pale. He had to block the other party's 4 slashes no matter what because it concerned the safety of the sect's main hall. The sect's gate was broken, and his dignity was trampled on. If he could not even protect the sect's main hall, how could he face his ancestors in the netherworld 100 years later? Boom! 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 The blade aura with supreme power tore the space apart and slammed into the Tai Chi pattern, causing it to tremble violently. The Extreme Coldness Palace master's chi and blood churned violently, but the spiritual energy in his body continued to erupt wildly. In the end, he stabilized the 9th-level Chaotic Prime, Extreme Coldness Palace. He withstood it. However, it was not over. Jun Chengshao, who took advantage of the situation, raised the green dragon crescent blade again. With the soul of Wu Sheng's blessing, he slashed again. Boom! 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 Another 3 incomparably powerful saber chi slammed into the ice-type Tai Chi diagram, bringing about an even more powerful impact. Every slash from Jun Chengshao contained the power of the 5 elements. It was truly powerful. Although the Palace Master of Extreme Coldness Palace managed to stabilize himself with great difficulty, the spirit energy in his body was being rapidly consumed. This was Wu Huang, a level 5 martial artist. In terms of strength, he was 2 levels higher than Wu Huang of the Xingyin sect. The battle prowess of Jun Chengshao, who had advanced by 3 grades, was truly explosive. If he were to exchange blows with Ge Tuhong again, he would definitely be able to defeat him even without using the 10,000 ancestral swords. The Palace Master of the Extreme Coldness Palace had a ferocious look on his face as he roared, "Who the hell are you?" The mountain gate had been blasted open, and many disciples and elders had been killed. They still did not know the identity of the intruder. This was truly a tragedy. Jun Chengshao raised his green dragon crescent blade again and shouted, "Southwest Yangzhou, Qingyang County, Patriarch of the Sect of all times, Jun Chengshao." His voice was as loud as a bell, reverberating between heaven and earth. Sect of all times. Jun Chengshao. The sect that used to be called the Iron Bone Clan. Boom! 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 At this moment, several saber chi slammed into the ice-type Tai Chi diagram again. The latter could not withstand it anymore. With a cracking sound, dense cracks appeared. It was broken. With a few more slashes, it would definitely be broken. The Palace Master of Extreme Coldness Palace said angrily, "A sect from southwest Yangzhou dares to come to northeast Luzhou. This is unforgivable." Whoosh! Whoosh! The cold air in the sky suddenly rose. The falling snowflakes instantly turned into ice cubes, then quickly gathered together to form 4 lifelike ice dragons. Roar! The dragon's roar resounded between heaven and earth. "Oh my God, the Palace Master of Extreme Coldness Palace has performed the sect's ultimate martial art, Sky Ice Dragon." Many martial artists widened their eyes. Whoosh! Whoosh! It was as if 4 ice dragons were circling between the heavens and the earth, dragging their long bodies as they attacked. The extreme coldness seemed to be able to freeze even the air. Screech! The Demon Ridge Black Eagle raised its head and screeched. 2 huge and sharp claws tore through the air, like an eagle catching two chicks, and directly bound the two ice dragons. Then, they were crushed into pieces. 5th grade Wu Huang was very strong. However, Jun Patriarch still had contract beasts. Don't say that one man and one beast fighting one is unfair. If you have the ability, catch one and fight with me. Roar. The other two ice dragons rushed over from both sides. They did not attack the Demon Ridge Black Eagle, but Jun Changshao. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, a monstrous flame suddenly erupted in mid-air, instantly dispersing the extremely cold air, making the entire extreme coldness palace as warm as spring. Jun Changshao, who was falling, landed in the flame, and a solid red armor quickly condensed. He looked so handsome. Whoosh! Whoosh! Little Longlong's human head appeared from the scorching flame, and it said in a childish voice, "No one can hurt my master." I was wrong just now. It was not one man and one beast, but one man and two beasts fighting one. Whoosh! The light of the flame flashed by. One of the ice dragons that rushed over had its head hugged by little dragonling. Dry and clumsy, not round at all. Whoosh! Whoosh! The scorching flames suddenly soared, and the extremely hard body of the ice dragon was suddenly wiped off the edges and sharpness. In the blink of an eye, a lifelike ice dragon was killed by little Longlong, and it was directly evaporated by the high-temperature flame. Water can carry a boat, but it can also cook porridge. When the scorching flame reached the extreme, even the coldest attribute could be melted and evaporated. Whoosh! Little Longlong hugged another ice dragon with the monstrous flame again and quickly killed it. Whoosh! Jun Changshao slashed down with the green dragon crescent blade again. The already shaky ice enchantment could no longer hold on and finally shattered into nothingness. Puff! The palace master of the extreme coldness palace spat out blood and took a few steps back weakly. Two of his sect's martial arts were broken one after another, causing a huge backlash. Without two contract beasts at the level of Wu Huang, he could fight with Jun Changshao. Now, not to mention the sword and martial king, even little Longlong and the black eagle of the Demon Ridge could not do anything. Whoosh! Whoosh! In the sky, the black eagle of the Demon Ridge flapped its wings, creating a strong whirlwind that made the hall tremble violently. Whoosh! Whoosh! Little Longlong, whose whole body was covered in flames except for its head, stopped in mid-air and opened its right palm to catch its master who was falling down. Whoosh! Jun Changshao stood with his blade and said lightly, "The palace master of the extreme coldness palace is just so. His surname was Jun Jun, who ruled the world. Kill! Kill! On the martial arts field, Zhong Yi led the Wolf Rider Hall and was still killing without restraint. Thousands of disciples of the extreme coldness palace were lying on the ground. As for their high-level forces, they were also held back by Yi Xingqian, Zhou Hong, and the Ning brothers. However, at this time, no one noticed that Zhen Dejuan, the old man, was strolling around the outer courtyard of the extreme coldness palace, inserting array flags into the ground. Patriarch. After a while, he opened his arms, and a strange smile appeared on his face. I want to raze this fourth-rate sect to the ground. Buzz! In an instant, streams of light shot into the sky from the extreme coldness palace, forming an array that emitted the power of thunder. Not good. An elder of the extreme coldness palace who had studied arrays exclaimed, "This is a thunder-gathering array." Wrong. Zhen Dejuan shook his finger and said, "This is a chain thunder-gathering array that I have just researched. Once it explodes, not to mention the extreme coldness palace, even the surrounding 100 miles will be razed to the ground." What? The expressions of the high-level members of the extreme coldness palace changed greatly. Kakik. Zhen Dejuan's smile became even more distorted, as if he was a complete pervert. He lowered his voice and said, "Are you afraid? Today is Monday. I have 3,099 recommendation votes. Babies, if the votes can exceed 4,000, I will add more. Chapter 588. Zhen Dejuan had set up a chain of thunder arrays in the extreme cold palace. He was eager to detonate it to admire his masterpiece. This was a lunatic. However, there was another lunatic. That was Jun Changshao. He stood proudly on little Longlong's palm and said coldly, "Hand over my disciple. Otherwise, the extreme cold palace will completely disappear from this world." The palace lord of the extreme cold palace was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. A sect from Yangzhou in the southwest dared to come to Luzhou in the northeast. It was intolerable. However, in the current situation, he had to compromise because the sect might really be razed to the ground. Jun Patriarch. The palace lord of the extreme cold palace gritted his teeth and said, "My palace did put a bounty on your disciple, but after the battle at the boundless ice sea, we lost track of her. We are still looking for her." Bullshit. Jun Changshao said, "I have received the news that my disciple has been captured by you. You are still making excuses. Do you really think I don't dare to destroy the extreme cold palace?" Patriarch. Zhen Dejuan said coldly, "Let me detonate the array directly." Jun Patriarch couldn't wait to kick him out of the Milky Way galaxy. "My precious disciple hasn't been found yet. If you detonate the array, won't that be the same as harming her?" Jun Changshao was very calm. If it weren't for Lu Qianqian, he could have fired a few more cannonballs outside and razed the extreme cold palace to the ground. Jun Patriarch. The palace lord of the extreme cold palace said with an ashen face, "Your disciple is really not in the extreme cold palace. The so-called news may be a false rumor." Jun Changshao couldn't believe it. He said, "It seems that you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Kill them for me. Kill. Kill. Poof. Poof." Zhong Yi and the others rode on the hurricane wolves and continued to kill crazily on the training field. The disciples of the extreme cold palace were no match for them. "We can't let him continue to act recklessly. Otherwise, it will cause public outrage in Luzhou in the northeast." The cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy hiding in the dark were about to appear and stop them. But it was too late. Because in the sky, there were as many as 8 streams of light streaking across the sky and arrived above the extreme cold palace in the shortest time. As the light dissipated, 8 magnificent martial emperors appeared. These people were the sect master of the 4th-rate Xianling sect, the valley master of the 4th-rate Ice Peak Valley, the sect master of the 4th-rate Frost sect, and the sect master of the 4th-rate Ice Soul sect. This is troublesome. The cultivators of the Mandate Academy frowned. The experts sent by the certification headquarters were also filled with bitterness. Most of the sects in Lu Prefecture in the northeast had been passed down from the Ice Emperor's bloodline 10,000 years ago. Although they usually fought openly and secretly, they were definitely united against outsiders. "Sect Master," Zhen Dejuan said solemnly, "let's retreat." As a veteran, Zhen Dejuan knew when to act cool and when to keep a low profile. The 8 martial emperors hovered in the air above the extreme cold palace. They frowned as they watched the disciples being slaughtered. "Brat." The patriarch of the Xianling sect said coldly, "What grudge do you have against the extreme cold palace?" Whoosh whoosh, the aura of the 8 Wu Huang spread throughout the outer yard. Although the disciples of the sect of all times could resist, they instinctively stopped and retreated to the ruins of the gate. The current situation was 9 sect masters of 4th-rate sects, 9 Wu Huang were confronting the sect of all times. A photo would definitely be voted as the most shocking photo of the year. Jun Changshao didn't panic at all in the face of so many Wu Huang. He said, "Bullying my disciples is a grudge and a grudge. Everyone." The palace master of the extreme cold palace said angrily, "This brat is the patriarch of the sect of all times in Yangzhou. He said that he would destroy the extreme cold palace. He was secretly relieved that the 8 sect masters had come to his aid. To be honest, the extreme cold palace would really be in trouble today if there were no reinforcements. Oh. The Valley Master of the Ice Mountain Valley sneered. The sect that was rated as one of the top 3 and changed its name? I heard that the sect master of this sect is the Sword King and Martial King. We talked about it before. I didn't expect to see him in person today, the patriarch of the freezing sect said lightly. Don't be fooled by their calm expressions, they were quite shocked in their hearts. The sect of all time seemed to have risen overnight. Now, they could destroy the gate of the extreme cold palace. It was impossible to do so without some strength. Everyone. Jun Changshao said lightly, I'm not a person who holds grudges. Let go of my eldest disciple and we'll forget about this. Hearing this, the mouth of the expert hiding in the dark twitched violently. Jun Patriarch. You destroyed their gate and killed so many disciples. 8 sect masters came to help. It would be a miracle if they could let you leave. Forget about this. The palace master of the extreme cold palace said with a ferocious expression, Jun Changshao, you and your disciple must leave your life in the extreme cold palace today. Jun Changshao said, you mean you won't let my disciple go? Let my foot go. Your disciple is not in the extreme cold palace at all. If there were no reinforcements, he might have said it. But now, he was full of confidence. He sneered and said, even if your sect of all time's disciple is in the extreme cold palace, I won't let him go. You've got guts. Jun Changshao raised his hand and said telepathically, retreat. They were terrified. The 8 Wu Huang were eyeing them covetously. They had no choice but to be terrified. Damn it. Wait until I find a way to save my eldest disciple. I'll play with you until you're in so much pain that you'll wish you were dead. Whoosh. Whoosh. The sect of all time's disciples received the order and retreated from the extreme cold palace at lightning speed. Would the 8 Wu Huang watch them retreat? Of course not. Huff huff in an instant, 8 Wu Huang's auras exploded, forming an overwhelming force that shrouded the sect of all time's disciples. Screech. The Demon Ridge Black Eagle landed at the mountain gate. It waved its arms and created a gust of wind that blew away the Wu Huang's auras. Even so, it did not completely dissolve the auras, and there were still some remaining auras. Just as the auras touched the sect of all time's disciples, a scorching flame exploded and cleared the auras instantly. Little Long Long and the Demon Ridge Black Eagle were on par with the auras of the 8 Wu Huang. Strong. Very strong. Jun Changshao said coldly, if anything happens to my disciple, I'll make everyone in the extreme cold palace pay with their blood. Whoosh. Little Long Long carried him and left. Kid. The Xianling sect patriarch waved his hand, and a vast force gathered in the sky. He shouted coldly, you can't leave. He was a rank 7 Wu Huang and was very powerful. Master. Little Long Long swung his arm and tossed Jun Changshao to the side. His eyes flashed with fighting spirit as he said, I'll bring up the rear. Huff huff scorching flames erupted, and soon after, they converged into a vortex that resembled a tornado. Like a dragon rising from Mount Lu, it directly met the martial emperor's force that was pressing down. Boom! Little Long Long broke the Xianling sect patriarch's move with one punch and landed at the mountain gate. Then, he pouted. Huff huff the flames around him burned wildly and gradually expanded as if firewood was added to it. Boom! Little Long Long stepped on the ground, and his body turned from a child to a giant. He said with a deep voice, dry and clumsy. Not round at all. Screech the Demon Ridge Black Eagle raised its head and roared. Its huge wings suddenly retracted, and its entire body was surrounded by black aura. Then, light laughter came from inside. You humans are so annoying. Little Long Long was stunned. He looked down and saw a black-haired girl with a graceful figure walking out of the black aura barefoot. She wore a black feather coat, and her eyes were as black as the stars. Very cute. You are. Little Long Long was stunned. The big bird just now. The black-haired girl flipped her black hair and said proudly, "Call me queen." Chapter 589. Jun Changshao, who was outside the mountain gate, widened his eyes when he saw the Demon Ridge Black Eagle transform into a girl. My contract beast also has a combat form, and it's actually a girl. That little look, that sweet voice, how can it be so cute? I can't take it anymore. My little heart is about to explode from her cuteness. Especially when he thought about how she would stand on the eagle beast and act cool after subduing it, Jun Patriarch wanted to slap his own face with his shoe. Such a cute girl riding on the eagle's head, this is definitely a sin. The humanoid Demon Ridge Black Eagle was not old, and its skin was pink like a porcelain doll. It was really cute. However, Little Long Long stared with its big round eyes and said fiercely, "Queen? Get lost." "You," the Demon Ridge Black Eagle said in disbelief, "how dare you yell at me?" "So what if I'm yelling at you?" Little Long Long said impatiently. "Little baby who hasn't weaned off milk, hurry up and drink milk. Don't delay me from showing off my power here." The Demon Ridge Black Eagle looked at Jun Changshao with grievances in its eyes. "This little bug bullied me. Master, please help me." "Ignore it." Jun Changshao said, "A guy destined to be alone for life." "System," he said it as if it could bloom. Huff huff. At this moment, the Xianling Sect Patriarch and the other Wu Huang flew over. Vast spiritual energy erupted and crazily squeezed the space. "Get lost." Little Long Long pushed the Demon Ridge Black Eagle away, raised its arms shrouded in hot flames, and smashed into the void. Boom! The space shook, and the heat spread. The power of the two Wu Huang was directly broken, and they took 2 steps back with shock in their eyes. This big guy with flames was actually so powerful. Heaven and Earth Ice Seal. The Shanghan Sect Patriarch flew over, and a cold aura spread. The space was frozen as if it had turned into a solid mirror. These martial emperors from Lu province in the northeast were all genuine ice cultivators. They were extremely adept at using ice martial skills. It was a pity. No matter how strong the ice was, it would be melted when it met a hotter fire. Little Long Long was like a fire in winter, and the raging flames warmed everyone's hearts. "Ah!" He let out a loud cry and spread out his arms. Scorching flames burned wildly, causing the rapidly dropping temperature in the surroundings to be pulled back in an instant. The frozen space felt warmth being released from the seal, but because of the sudden change in temperature, it instantly shattered like a mirror. Oh my god! In the distance, the martial artists of Lu Prefecture in the northeast were dumbfounded. When had they ever been lucky enough to witness a power that could stir the void with just a wave of his hand? This was a fight between immortals. Who at this moment, another sect leader crossed his hands and gathered ice-type spiritual energy in his palms. He roared, "Ice Spirit Cold Light! Ka ka ka!" Cold air whizzed out and quickly condensed into a huge icicle, which pierced towards Su Chen with boundless power. Little Long Long, who had just broken a patriarch's martial skill, was unable to divert his attention to defend himself. He could only watch as the ice attribute martial skill killed him. Whoosh! At this moment, a whirlwind appeared behind him and blew over, instantly cutting the icicle into pieces. Whoosh! The black eagle of the Demon Ridge tapped on its tiptoes and spread its wings. It flew into the air and drew a special pattern in the air with its small white hand. Then, it said, "Little bug, I'll deal with you after I kill these people." Tut! The little girl clapped her hands on the pattern that looked both real and illusory. Then, black feathers appeared out of thin air, emitting powerful energy. Fairy powder. She paused and said, feathers. Little Long Long almost fell down. Fairy powder feathers? What the hell was that? Whoosh! 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 The black feathers all over the sky were like bullets, instantly shooting toward the outer courtyard of the extreme cold palace. The 8 Wu Huang's faces changed dramatically because of the wide coverage. The palace master of the extreme cold palace exclaimed, "Protect our palace!" Whoosh! Whoosh! As soon as the palace master finished his words, several Wu Huang flew over. Cold air instantly spread out and formed solid ice walls in front of them. Boom! 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 The black feathers hit the ice walls, creating explosions and aftershocks. Looking from afar, one could see that ripples were spreading crazily, and the whole world was shaking. So powerful. Jun Changshao, who had already retreated from the extreme cold palace, was overjoyed. Ha ha ha. My contract beast is not only cute, but also good at fighting. Whoosh. Little Long Long didn't want to be outdone by a girl. It dragged its huge body and attacked with flames that seemed to be able to burn the world. For a moment. In the sky above the extreme cold palace, violent energy exploded crazily, and the space was distorted. It was like the end of the world. Sigh. Zhendejuan put his hands behind his back and said, "Why didn't the patriarch allow me to blow up the extreme cold palace?" At this moment, the chain thunder gathering array on the martial arts field was shaking because of the extreme distortion of space. If they didn't detonate it now, they wouldn't have a chance. Let's go. Jun Changshao ordered the disciples to retreat. He didn't expect that 8 Wu Huang would come to his rescue. Since he couldn't defeat them, he had to retreat tactically and think of a way to save Lu Qianqian. Patriarch. At this moment, Su Xiaoma exclaimed, "Look, it's senior sister. Over there, over there." Jun Changshao hurriedly looked in the direction of his finger and saw Lu Qianqian floating on a lonely peak in front of him. Her eyes were filled with complicated emotions. She didn't expect that the patriarch and her fellow disciples would come to Northeast Lu province for her and fight with the extreme cold palace. At that moment, her heart like still water realm cracked again. Sigh. It would be very difficult to repair it, senior sister. Senior sister. The disciples shouted excitedly. Seeing that his eldest disciple appeared safe and sound, Jun Changshao let out a long sigh of relief and murmured, "She's lost weight." Wait. Wasn't she taken away by the extreme cold palace? How could she appear here? Li Luoqiu said, "Patriarch, I just received news that the information I received was wrong. The extreme cold palace didn't find Lu Qianqian." The corner of Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. Big sister, can't the information be more accurate? He couldn't blame Li Luoqiu for the wrong information. The information network hadn't been fully developed yet, so it was inevitable that there would be negligence in the screening. Boom! There was a loud explosion behind him. Little Dragon was bombarded by 4 Wu Huang. Its huge body fell from the mountain gate to the foot of the mountain. It gritted its teeth and said, "It hurts." Boom! Boom! In the sky above the extreme cold palace, the other 4 Wu Huang were fighting with the petite Devil Ridge Black Eagle. However, because they were outnumbered, they gradually fell into a passive position. Patriarch. Zhendejuan asked again, "Do you blow it up or not?" The veins on Jun Changshao's neck were bulging. He shouted angrily, "Blow it up." Okay. Zhendejuan covered his face with one hand and laughed like a madman. Whoosh! Suddenly, he opened his arms and said with a ferocious expression, "Next, please enjoy a beautiful fireworks feast." Buzz! Buzz! The space of the extreme cold palace suddenly vibrated rhythmically. The array barrier, which had been hidden in the dark, appeared again and produced a hot and dazzling light. As a spirit beast, the Black Eagle of the Devil Ridge had a stronger sense of danger than humans. It gathered a whirlwind to repel a martial emperor. Then it hurriedly flapped its wings and flew out like the wind. It grabbed the little dragon's big ear with one hand and sped toward its master. Oh no! The 8 Wu Huang smelled danger. But it was already too late. After the formation flashed with light, it instantly turned into a cold light and then exploded with a boom. The mountain that supported the extreme cold palace directly bloomed in front of everyone's eyes. Chapter 590. Boom! Boom! The sound of the explosion was incessant, and everyone within 1,000 miles could hear it clearly. The entire ground was shaking, and all the cultivators in it looked at the extreme coldness palace in horror. What happened? The cultivators of Lu Prefecture were dumbfounded. This level of vibration must have been caused by a huge explosion. Hiss 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 hiss, the extreme coldness palace. No, half of the mountain that had been blown up was still sputtering restlessly. It was obvious that the remaining power had not completely dissipated. Jun Chengxiao's eyes were filled with disbelief. Lu Qianqian appeared on the mountain peak and was not in the extreme coldness palace. Little Long Long was also sent flying. He directly took Zhen Dejuan's advice and chose to detonate the array. However, this kind of power and destructive power was too frightening. Even a field cannon could not do this. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were also dumbfounded. Especially when they thought of the series of explosions that were more brilliant than fireworks, a chill ran down their spines. Sigh. Zhen Dejuan shook his head and said, the power did not meet expectations. We need to improve it when we go back. Everyone's mouth twitched. The entire mountain was blown up, and it did not meet expectations. If you want to improve it, you might have to raise everything within 100 miles to the ground. Wait. Jun Chengxiao said, Elder Zhen, didn't you just say that once you detonate the array, you can raise everything within 100 miles to the ground? That's right. Everyone also remembered. He did say that, and he asked the people of the extreme coldness palace if they were afraid. Zhen Dejuan put his hands behind his back and let the cold wind blow on his face. He said shamelessly, when facing a strong enemy, if you can say something big, you have to say something big. Only then can you scare them. Fuck. After all this time, he was just bragging. Everyone rolled their eyes. However, it was still very powerful to blow up half of the extreme coldness palace with just the array. Li Qingyang and the others finally realized why no one in the Falling Star continent was willing to offend array masters. It was too scary. Too scary. Especially a lunatic like Elder Zhen. Whoever provoked him would squat in front of their house all day planting time bombs. Just thinking about it sent chills down their spines. Elder Zhen. Su Xiaoma leaned over and said with a trembling smile, can you teach me? If anyone provokes me in the future, I'll set up a formation in their latrine and blow them up until they shit and piss all over the place. Zhen Dejuan rolled his eyes at him and said, you don't have the talent for formations. Go play in the mud. Poochie. Poochie. The black shadow of the demon ridge flapped its wings and flew over. It threw the little dragon down and said, Master, this little bug was almost killed by the explosion. Bullshit. Little Long Long stood up angrily and said, even if you don't pull me, I can still dodge. TSK, the demon ridge black eagle snorted and landed in front of Jun Chengxiao. It smiled sweetly and said, Master, I did well just now, didn't I? Not bad, not bad. Jun Chengxiao gave him a head rub. The Black Hawk of the Demon Ridge was only 11 or 12 years old. When she stood with Jun Patriarch, who was more than 1.8 meters tall, they looked like father and daughter. Of course. The most eye-catching thing was the pair of wings that were as black as ink. So beautiful. Su Xiaoma walked over and said with a smile, Girl, can I touch it? Swoosh. The black hawk of the demon ridge turned around and the smile on her face disappeared. Her bright eyes flashed coldly and said, "Remember, call me queen." The speed at which she changed her face was too fast. Su Xiaoma shuddered and hurriedly said, "Yes, Lord." Whoosh! At this moment, violent energy surged out of the half-blown mountain. 8 sect leaders flew out of the lightning in an extremely sorry state. The explosion came too suddenly and they couldn't dodge it at all. Fortunately, their strength was very strong and could withstand the bombardment of the thunder power. However, they were inevitably beaten black and blue. The most miserable one was the palace master of the extreme coldness palace. He floated in the air with his back facing Jun Changshao and the others. His arms were spread wide open, and his whole body was charred black. Even his hair was standing on end, and black smoke was rising from it. Right in front. Although the main hall that had stood for thousands of years was broken in many places, it was still in ruins. More than half of the inner courtyard of the sect survived under his protection. When the explosion arrived, the palace master of the extreme coldness palace didn't think about protecting himself. Instead, he thought about using his body to protect the main hall that represented the legacy and the soul of the sect. Because, in his opinion, people could die, but the dignity of the sect must be defended. Thud. Thud. The upper echelons of the extreme coldness palace fell into the ruins one by one. Although they didn't fly up and use their bodies to defend the dignity of the sect, they stood in front of the main hall and formed a human wall to protect the lifeline of the sect and more disciples. Impressive. Jun Changshao cupped his fists and said. He didn't regret his decision to blow up the extreme coldness palace, nor would he feel pity. However, at the critical moment, they used their bodies to defend the dignity of the sect without caring about their lives. That alone was worthy of respect. Jun Changshao. The palace master of the extreme coldness palace landed weakly in front of the main hall. His eyes were bloodshot as he said, "The humiliation that you gave the extreme coldness palace today will be returned 100 times in the future." Jun Changshao turned around and said arrogantly, "I'll be waiting for you at Mount Iron Bone." Brat. The Xianling sect patriarch said angrily, "Do you think you can leave?" Whoosh! As soon as he said that, Little Long Long slammed his palms into the air. 2 explosive fire pillars rushed toward him, shocking him so much that he hurriedly retreated. Swoosh! 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 The other 7 Wu Huang swiftly flew over and blocked Jun Changshao and the rest's escape route. They came to northeast Lu State to cause trouble and almost blew up the extreme coldness palace into ruins. If the sect of all times were to leave peacefully like this, where would their dignity be? Everyone. Jun Changshao said calmly, "I've found my eldest disciple. It should be the time for me to ask about his well-being, but all of you are flying around like flies. It's really annoying." Master. Little Long Long said, "All of you leave first. I'll cover you." No need. Jun Changshao raised his hand, and the pocket-sized hard-to-keep saber appeared in his palm. With a cold gaze, he said, "I haven't killed Wu Huang before. I don't mind killing 8 of you today. This saber." Li Qingyang and the rest's expressions changed drastically. In Death Valley, in the spirit stone mine full of snake beasts, they had all seen it. It was definitely a divine weapon that made people tremble in fear. The patriarch took it out again today. He wanted to use Wu Huang's blood as a sacrifice to the saber. Humph. The Xianling sect patriarch said coldly, "Killing 8 of us? Jun patriarch is really not afraid of biting his tongue." Huff huff! The other 7 Wu Huang released their cultivation levels simultaneously, and a strong suppressive aura pressed down on them like a landslide. Jun Changshao placed 2 fingers on the hilt of hard-to-keep saber and pinched the opening talisman in his space ring. However, just as he was about to crush it and take out the 40-meter-long saber, Lu Qianqian flew over and landed in front of Jun Changshao. She instinctively protected him behind her and raised her hand, revealing an item. The Ice Emperor's token is here. Who dares to be rash? It was a token with golden edges, and the words, Ice Emperor's token, were engraved on it. You, the Xianling sect patriarch, was shocked. Why do you have the Ice Emperor's token? The other 7 sect leaders' expressions changed drastically as well, but they hurriedly retracted their suppressive auras, clearly not daring to be rash in front of the Ice Emperor's token. The Ice Emperor's legacy. Lu Qianqian said calmly, I inherited it. What? How is that possible? The 8 sect leaders' eyes were filled with disbelief. The Ice Emperor had disappeared 10,000 years ago, and no one knew if he was dead or alive. Suddenly, someone took out a token and said that she was inheriting his legacy. This was simply unbelievable. Chapter 591. Lu Qianqian took out the token, and the 8 sect masters hurriedly retracted their suppressive aura. Jun Chengshao, who was about to crush the opening talisman and pretend to be a bigger one, was stunned. Yi Xingqian's heart stirred as well. In terms of seniority, the Ice Emperor was one of the top powerful figures in the older generation of the Falling Star continent. After he became a martial emperor, he had been in seclusion for a long time, and Yi Xingqian had never seen him before. He did not expect that Lu Qianqian would be able to inherit his legacy today. This was definitely a rare opportunity. Girl. The Xianling sect patriarch said, are you speaking the truth? Are you doubting the Ice Emperor's token? Lu Qianqian's voice was as cold as usual, and there was no emotion in it. The Sect of All Time's disciples felt very comfortable listening to her. It was still the same formula and taste. Our eldest senior sister did not change at all. No. She changed. The cold aura that senior sister emitted was thicker than before, and her aura was even colder. She was becoming more and more like an otherworldly fairy. Fear appeared in the eyes of the giantified little Long Long, and even the surging flames instantly weakened. This was a huge psychological shadow that came from being sealed in ice. Lu Qianqian said, you can doubt my words, but can you doubt the Ice Emperor's token? No. The token emitted an unparalleled cold aura. The 8 Wu Huang could confirm that this was definitely the Ice Emperor's token and not an imitation that could be made with just 1 or 2 taels of silver. Lu Qianqian said, you should all be branches of the sect that the Ice Emperor created back then. Now that I am his successor, why don't you bow down to me? The 8 Wu Huang's expressions changed instantly. They looked at each other. Even though they were extremely unwilling, they could only cup their fists and say, sorry for being impolite. Louder. Jun Chengshao said, I didn't hear you clearly. Seeing that this group of patriarch was very wary of his disciple's token, he started to show off. As for the hard to withdraw saber, he had already withdrawn it. Because there was no need to use it, he had saved an opening seal talisman. Seeing Jun Patriarch's arrogant and despotic appearance, the 8 Wu Huang almost rolled up their sleeves, surrounded him, and gave him a good beating. However, with the Ice Monarch's order in front of them, they didn't dare to breathe. 10,000 years ago, the Ice Empress had absolute authority, and no one dared to disobey her. This was especially true for the forces of Lu Province in the northeast. They had all split off from the sect that the Ice Empress had created, and they had always respected and worshipped her as their ancestor. Therefore, they could only cup their fists and say again, sorry for the lack of manners. His voice was loud and clear, full of confidence. Jun Chengshao said in satisfaction, that's more like it. He really deserved a beating. If it weren't for the fact that they were separated by a screen, the author would have beaten him up. Lu Qianqian said indifferently, still not leaving. The faces of the 8 Wu Huang instantly darkened. The guy who came to northeast Luzhou to cause trouble hadn't paid a painful price yet. He was really unwilling to leave just like that. You're not leaving. Jun Chengshao said, let's go. He had found his eldest disciple and cleaned up the extreme cold palace. He had no more worries and left peacefully with his disciple. They're leaving just like that? Of course. That woman has the Ice Empress order. Seeing the order is like seeing the person. The 8th Patriarch definitely won't dare to act rashly. This sect of all times is really awesome. Their disciple is actually the successor of the Ice Empress. The martial cultivators of Lu province in the northeast who were standing in the distance all started discussing. At the same time, they realized that the extreme cold palace had completely lost today. The experts of the two large organizations hiding in the dark were a little confused. They had originally planned to help June Patriarch when he was in danger, but they didn't have the chance to do so. This was also good. If the two large organizations appeared, even if they protected June Changshao, this matter would instantly escalate from a grudge between two sects to a grudge between two prefectures. It would only make the problem worse. The conflict ended when Lu Qianqian flashed the Ice Empress order. June Patriarch and his disciple could be considered to have escaped unscathed. Speaking of escaping unscathed, it reminded me. Forget it, I'll just explode on the spot. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden mission, undefeated. You have gained 2,000 contribution points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden mission, undefeated. You have gained 3,000 contribution points. Ding! Contribution points, 200,002,0000. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden mission, undefeated. You have gained hidden rewards, Experience Talisman X1, Supreme Grade Aptitude Modification Fluid X5. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the hidden mission, undefeated. You have gained hidden rewards, Experience Talisman X1, Supreme Grade Aptitude Modification Fluid X1. Undefeated meant that he had killed his way to the extreme cold palace and used his absolute strength to oppress them until they couldn't fight back. Escaping unscathed meant that even if he was surrounded by 8 Wu Huangs, he could still escape with ease and without any losses. Awesome! June Patriarch, who was walking in the ice and snow, shouted loudly. The best thing was the 2 experience talismans and the Supreme Grade Aptitude Modification Fluid. According to his previous experience, after using it, he would be able to break through to the 9th grade sword and martial king. After cultivating for a while and reaching the peak, he would be able to trigger the epic mission. Becoming a martial emperor was just around the corner. Especially the Supreme Grade Aptitude Modification Fluid. After using it, becoming a sword emperor would be easy. The disciples of the Eternal Sect temporarily stopped to rest and reorganize under an ice hill where the cold wind was blowing. After experiencing a battle at the extreme cold palace, although it was fun and satisfying, some of the wolf riders were inevitably injured. Fortunately, they had the protection of their spirit armor and their bodies were extremely strong, so they were only lightly injured. Senior brothers. Li Fei squatted in front of an ice rock, holding his head and shivering. Be gentle. Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and the others surrounded him, clenching their fists. Their eyes were glowing with a terrifying red light. In the extreme cold palace, not only did they have to divert their attention to fight the enemy, but they also had to defend against the bullets that would come from behind at any time. Su Xiaoma smiled eerily. I was shot 4 times, so I was punched 4 times. Fuck, I was shot 6 times. Li Fei said frantically. Tian Qi gritted his teeth. Although I was only shot twice, they hit my butt. They didn't even turn. If I didn't protect myself in advance, the consequences would be unimaginable. What are you waiting for? Su Xiaoma stepped forward and grabbed Li Tiantian's body. He shouted, brothers, beat him up. Bang! 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 In just a moment, Li Tiantian's head was full of bruises. His eyes narrowed into a line, and he looked as miserable as he could. Damn it! I'll never play with guns again. On the ice hill. Lu Qianqian retracted her gaze from the group of playful junior brothers and said, "Sorry for making you worry, Sect Master." His words came as a surprise to everyone. "It's good that you're fine." Jun Changshao said, "However, remember, the sect has been promoted to a sect. In the future, you have to call me Patriarch." "Understood, Patriarch," Lu Qianqian said. Jun Changshao asked curiously, "How did you inherit the Frost Emperor's legacy?" Lu Qianqian said, "I fought with the Extreme Cold Palace's elites in the Boundless Ice Sea. I was defeated and escaped with injuries. I accidentally entered the Frost Emperor's place of seclusion." "Escaped with injuries?" Jun Changxiao's gaze was cold. "He injured my sect's eldest disciple and didn't destroy the Extreme Cold Palace. He's lucky." Looking at the angry figure in front of her, Lu Qianqian felt warmth in her heart. Her state of mind, which was already on the verge of breaking, cracked again. Her state of mind, which had been stabilized recently, was completely destroyed. Chapter 592. Actually, the Extreme Cold Palace was also quite unlucky. At first, they thought that Lu Qianqian had a special ice attribute and wanted to recruit her. However, the conflict between the other party and the Snow Track Valley became more and more serious, to the point that it gradually deviated from their original intentions. In the end, it developed to the point that they were wanted, and they encountered each other in the Endless Ice Sea. If the Extreme Cold Palace had stuck to their initial principles and only recruited her, the Sect of All Times would not have traveled such a long distance to attack them, and they would not have ended up like this. It could be considered as a warning. A warning to the entire continent that the Sect of All Times was not to be trifled with. Of course. The news that Jun Patriarch had almost destroyed the Extreme Cold Palace and alarmed the 8 Patriarch would definitely spread like a gust of wind across the entire continent, and would definitely set off a new round of heated discussion. And then? Jun Changshao continued to ask. Lu Qianqian said, "I obtained Senior Ice Emperor's token in his seclusion place, walked out of the Endless Ice Sea, and heard that the Snow Track Valley had been destroyed. From the news that a large number of wolf-riding martial artists had killed their way to the Snow Track Valley, she guessed that it was the Patriarch and her fellow sect members who had done it, so she went to the Extreme Cold Palace." Lu Qianqian understood Jun Changshao. He must have gotten the news that she was wanted, and then brought people to seek justice for her. Everything was as she guessed. When she arrived at the Extreme Cold Palace, the Patriarch and her fellow sect members were already fighting with the other party. At that moment, Lu Qianqian's state of mind received an unprecedented shock, and her heart as still as water level cracked. She had come to the northeast Lu province to stabilize her state and break through to a higher level, but in the end, it was all for naught. "Do you still want to continue training here?" Jun Changshao asked. Lu Qianqian looked at him and said, "Can I?" There was a faint pleading in those cold and unfeeling words. It had changed. Although it still gave people a very cold feeling, at least it was mixed with human emotions. Jun Changshao said, "If this place can help you break through faster, it's not impossible to stay and train here." "Thank you, Patriarch," Lu Qianqian said. "But," Jun Changshao said seriously, "if you encounter any danger, you must contact the sect immediately. I will not allow anyone to hurt you, not even a strand of your hair." The tone of the last sentence was much heavier. "Ka ka ka." An invisible shattering sound rang in Lu Qianqian's heart. Her gaze wavered slightly, then she subconsciously turned around and said in a low voice, "Disciple understands." "Of course." Jun Changshao raised his head and said with a sharp gaze, "I won't allow any disciple to be bullied by others." The falling snow that filled the sky instantly evaporated under his domineering aura. Lu Qianqian didn't have any plans to follow the Patriarch back to the Sect of All Times. After all, she had just received the Ice Emperor's inheritance and needed to cultivate in this icy place to break through faster. Jun Patriarch agreed. As long as the disciples were fine, they could train however they wanted in the northeastern Luzhou. Of course, Jun Changshao couldn't just leave like that. Since they were already here, they would definitely bring their disciples to have a good time and experience the different local conditions and customs. Not to mention, in this world of ice and snow, there were sceneries everywhere. In the ice valley, Zhen Dejuan tasted a mouthful of the strong wine produced in the northeastern Luzhou and said, "The wine in the ice field is still strong." He. Su Xiaoma came over with a bowl of wine and said with a trembling smile, "Elder Zhen, teach me the array." "Get lost," Zhen Dejuan said, "go play somewhere else." Voila! In front of a large pot built on the spot, Jun Changshao threw in the minced meat that had just been chopped. He waved a big spoon and said, "Today, I'll make a special dish for you." Lu Wancher didn't come, and Li Qingyang was too weak, so the cooking job fell on his head. Previously, he led his disciples to kill in the extreme cold palace. Now, he was wearing an apron and cooking in the snow. This was Jun Changshao. A cruel and merciless devil, a clown in the kitchen. Patriarch Li Tian said, "Your cooking skills are far worse than Dudu's." Bang! His entire face caved in, and then with a bang, he crashed into the ice mountain, forming a tie shape. The young girl Devil Ridge Black Hawk withdrew her hand, and the spatial ripples dissipated. She said with a cold face, "Anyone who questions my master must accept my, Xiao Maxian's, punishment." Yes. Her name was Xiao Maxian. Jun Changshao had just given her a new name. Moreover, there was a Western-style prefix. She was called Balala. Girl. Jun Patriarch seriously said as he stir-fried, "You are a girl, so you must be reserved with your words. If you want to hit someone, you can say, 'Let me have some honey for you.'" Honey? Xiao Maxian was puzzled. What does that mean? It means let me deal with you. Jun Changshao said. I understand. Xiao Maxian stood up and walked barefoot to the ice mountain. She pointed at the crooked Li Tian and proudly said, "Let me have some honey for you." Bang! 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 Feathers filled the sky, wildly bombarding the ice mountain. Su Xiaoma and the others couldn't bear to look. They turned their heads, thinking, Patriarch's contract beast that can transform into human form is even more terrifying than Little Long Long. That's right. Where was Little Long Long? Everyone hurriedly looked around and saw that fellow had returned to its original appearance. It sat proudly on a small ice mountain, with an aura of, "I seek defeat, but I am invincible under the heavens." In fact, they were all panicking. Because Lu Qianqian was here, they had to keep their distance. Patriarch's cooking skills are good. The food was ready. The disciples gathered around, praising it. Thus, in the snow valley, thousands of disciples gathered together to eat. The scene was very beautiful. Qianqian. Jun Changshao said, "Your junior apprentice brother came all the way to northeast Lu province to fight with others for you. As a senior apprentice sister, shouldn't you say something? Eldest senior apprentice sister is in trouble, so we are here to help. This is what we should do." Su Xiaoma grinned. Li Fei smiled. "We are all from the same sect and are as close as brothers and sisters. If we don't help each other when we are in danger, who else can we rely on?" That's right. Jun Changshao said, "As disciples of the sect of all times, we should be as close as brothers and sisters. We should share blessings and hardships together." Smack. Lu Qianqian walked to the stone table and removed the mud seal on the wine jar. She poured a bowl of wine and raised it gently, her cold gaze sweeping across her fellow disciples. She didn't say anything. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others understood what their senior apprentice sister meant, so they raised their wine cups. Lu Qianqian drank the fiery wine in one gulp. Swoosh! Swoosh! Li Qingyang and the others drank the wine in unison. They didn't communicate verbally. Everything was in their hearts, in the fiery wine. In the world of flying snow, a beautiful melody sounded and slowly sang, the sea laughs, the tides on both sides of the shore, floating and sinking with the waves, only remembering this day, the sky laughs, the tides of the world, who loses and who wins, only heaven knows, eldest senior apprentice sister. On the ice mountain, Li Qingyang and the others rode on the hurricane wolves. They looked back and said, "We will go back first." The howl of the wolves resounded through the sky. Streaks of blue flowing light rushed across the ice field like a tide. Screech! The black eagle of the Demon Ridge flapped its wings and flew across the sky. Jun Chengshao sat on its back and crushed 2 experienced talismans. The 9th grade king of sword and martial arts erupted. He channeled his dantian and said, "Those who offend the sect of all times will be killed." His voice had a strong penetrating power, echoing in the sky of northeast Lu province. Martial cultivators 5,000 to 6,000 miles away could hear him clearly. Chapter 593. What? At the Demon Fiend Sect's branch, the leader stood up and said in disbelief, "The sect of all times almost destroyed the Extreme Coldness Palace?" "Yes, leader," his subordinate said. The leader sat down, his face full of disbelief. According to the information he received, Jun Chengshao only brought about 1,000 disciples. How could such a small force almost destroy a fourth-rate sect with tens of thousands of people? Moreover, that was someone else's territory. Who didn't know that martial cultivators who cultivated the ice element were extremely strong in a world of ice and snow? It was simply a fantasy to almost destroy it with just 1,000 people. Jun Chengshao and his disciples did the impossible. At this moment, the news about the battle at the Extreme Coldness Palace swept through the entire Falling Star continent like a storm. After many forces learned about it, they all widened their eyes. Especially when they learned that before Jun Chengshao left, he shouted in the sky, "Those who offend the sect of all times will be destroyed." A warning. A blatant warning. How arrogant was it to go to someone else's territory and shout such words? Sect of all times? On a certain misty mountain peak, an immortal-like old man stroked his beard and said, "Interesting." Patriarch. A middle-aged man said respectfully, "Recently, this sect in the southwest Yangzhou has done many unexpected things and is in the limelight." The old man smiled and said, "The birth of every sect with potential will cause ripples like a stone falling into water. However, there are very few that can truly establish themselves in the world. There is no need to pay attention to them. Moreover." He paused for a moment. Then, with a wave of his hand, a chess piece appeared in his skinny fingers. He gently placed it on the chessboard and said, "Right now, the Falling Star continent is like a pool of stagnant water. We need such vigorous forces to shake the world." The middle-aged man's expression changed slightly and said, "Patriarch thinks highly of the sect of all times? It doesn't matter whether I think highly of it or not." The old man murmured, "It still depends on its own fortune." In the past, the first thing the cultivators of the prefecture would ask when they met was if you ate. Now, it was if you heard. If someone asked, what did they hear? He would definitely be looked down upon and viewed as an outlier. The sect of all times had caused such a huge commotion that it had spread across the entire Starfall continent. Almost everyone was talking about it and spreading the news. It was really going to be a trend of, "Who in the world doesn't know you?" Some people thought that he was arrogant. Some believed that newborn calves were not afraid of tigers. In short, the sect of all times was like an author writing a book. It was impossible for it to receive absolute praise, and it was inevitable that it would be criticized behind its back by the martial artists of the various provinces. I can accept the honor. At the same time, he would also accept all slander and abuse. However, with Jun Chengxiao's character, he would never accept slander and abuse. Otherwise, he would pick up his weapon and fight with them. The sect of all times did not have a good reputation in the various states. In southwest Yangzhou, he was the idol and hero of countless martial cultivators. Since ancient times, how many sects from other sects had invaded their own territories to cause trouble? Now that they had fought their way out of the provincial gate and crushed the fourth-rate force of another sect, it was definitely satisfying. For a moment, the reputation of the sect of all times had reached its peak in southwest Yangzhou, becoming the holy land of martial arts that young men and women yearned for. Father, Mother, I am determined to become a disciple of the sect of all times in the future. 2 years ago, these words would have been firmly rejected by the parents. Now, not only were they happy that their child had finally grown up, they would also encourage him to persevere in his dreams. When a sect had enough prestige, it would impact the lives and culture of the surrounding areas. The 8 cities of Azure Sun County were swept up with the wind of the sect of all times. First of all, there was a change in clothing. The strict dressing was abandoned and gradually changed to the simple and lively uniform of the sect of all times. This kind of change in clothing was the most popular among the upper class. When visiting friends and relatives or holding grand banquets, the men would wear short shirts to appear simple and concise, while the women would dress in short skirts to show off their good figures. Xie Guangquan also made a bold and decisive change in clothing. He chose to wear light clothes and was more energetic than before. Due to the impact of the city lord and the upper class, the new clothing trend began to reach the ordinary people. The traditional clothing of the falling star continent gave people a dull feeling. Inspired by the school uniform of the Eternal Sect, it gradually became colorful, like 100 flowers competing with each other. As a result, walking on the main street of Azure Sun City and looking at the different colors of the pedestrians, one would feel as if they had entered a modern city. This kind of atmosphere was gradually eroding the surrounding towns and even spreading to other counties. It wouldn't be long before the entire southwest Yangzhou would be replaced by this kind of atmosphere and become younger and more energetic. As the initiator of the cultural transmission, Jun Changshao had been thinking about a problem after returning to the sect. First, he defeated the 5 sects of the West Cloud State and dealt with the Extreme Coldness Palace. Now that he had gained enough prestige, why not make it bigger? Since I've already caused a ruckus, I might as well let more people understand that the sect of all times is not to be trifled with, not to be trifled with. Once this thought arose, it couldn't be suppressed at all. Jun Patriarch summoned Zhen Dejuan and told him his thoughts. He asked, Elder Zhen, what do you think? Ta. Zhen Dejuan slammed the table and said, do you still need to say it? If you want to play, then play big. If you want to blow up, then blow up more. The 2 lunatics looked at each other and immediately shook their shoulders and laughed evilly. Shui Rengui. Jun Changxiao's voice suddenly sounded in the sect. Shui Rengui, who was training the members, was startled. The corner of his mouth twitched. We just came back. Don't tell me we're going to another state to cause trouble again. Gather 1,000 soldiers. Jun Changxiao's voice sounded. Follow me to the Demon Fiend Sect's branch. Yes. Shui Rengui received the order. The 1,000 members who had just returned rode the Hurricane Wolves and rushed out of Iron Bone Mountain, heading for the Demon Fiend Sect's branch. Jun Changxiao didn't ride the Demon Ridge Black Eagle this time. Instead, he changed to the Hurricane Wolf King. On the way, he said indifferently, it's time to collect the debt with interest, Demon Fiend Sect's branch. For the past few days, the great branch leader had been unable to eat or sleep well because the sect of all times had almost destroyed the Extreme Cold Palace. This meant that this once unrated sect was now unimaginably strong. If his disciples were bullied and dared to travel thousands of miles to fight with others, then Jun Changshao was definitely someone who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. In the past, the sect had once spied on his green dragon crescent blade. He had even sent Jiang Ye and the others to Iron Bone Mountain. Once he had the strength, it wouldn't be a surprise if he brought people to kill. No. The great branch leader stood up and said in a deep voice, "We have to inform the headquarters as soon as possible. I hope to send a powerhouse to oversee the southwest Yangzhou branch." Great branch leader. At this moment, a subordinate reported, "Jiang Ye has come to see you." The great branch leader was stunned. Why is he not a beggar in Jiangjia town? Could it be that he is also worried that Jun Changshao will seek revenge and doesn't dare to live in the town? Yama King Jiang strode in and cupped his hands. Great branch leader. The great branch leader took a sip of tea, a proud expression appearing between his brows. Although his strength couldn't compare to Jiang Ye's, as the branch leader of the Devil Fiend Sect's branch, his position was higher. Great branch leader. Jiang Ye said, "Is there any news about the person I am looking for?" Pa, the great branch leader placed the teacup on the table and said impatiently, "If there is news, I will inform you." Jiang Ye sat down and said with a cold gaze, "Jiang Ye, have served the Devil Fiend Sect for so many years, but every time I get a perfunctory response. I just want to ask, are you helping me find someone?" Jiang Ye. The subordinate next to him said coldly, "Watch your tone." Ka. Jiang Ye stood up and raised the Desert Eagle. With a bang, he shot the opponent's head and said coldly, "Today I came to tell you that I won't do it anymore." Chapter 594. The great branch leader stood up and saw his subordinate fall to the ground. His eyes were filled with shock as he said, God might flame cannon. It seems. Jun Changshao walked in from outside and sat at the head of the table. He crossed his legs and said, "Great branch leader inquired about my sect of all times quite a bit. You even know about the God might flame cannon." The great branch leader's expression changed as he said in shock, "Why are you here?" Jun Changshao looked at Jiang Ye and said with interest, "Does he mean that I can't come?" "Yes." Jiang Ye said, "Patriarch." "Patriarch?" This guy called him Patriarch. "Let me formally introduce you." Jun Changshao pointed at Jiang Ye and said, "I am an elder of the sect of all times. I also thank the Demon Fiend Sect for taking care of me all these years." The great branch leader said angrily, "Jiang Ye, you are openly betraying the Demon Fiend Sect. Don't you know what will happen to you?" "Sorry." Jiang Ye shrugged and said, "I am not a disciple of the Demon Fiend Sect. There is no betrayal." Despicable guy. The great branch leader was furious. Boom. At this moment, a loud explosion came from outside. The door with the plaque, Demon Fiend Sect branch leader, was smashed to pieces by Xiao Ziji. Kill. The disciples of the sect of all times rushed in with swords in hand. The disciples of the Demon Fiend Sect who rushed out of the room suddenly faced an enemy attack and tried to counterattack. In the end, they were all killed in a single move. This was not a branch after all. Their strength was barely comparable to a sixth-rate sect. The disciples of the sect of all times had just come from a fourth-rate sect. Fighting with them was simply not knowing how to write the word death. It's over, it's over. The great branch leader's heart turned cold. He guessed right. Jun Changshao was a person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. However, he did not expect that the other party would kill his way here as soon as he returned from Lu province in the northeast, not giving him any time to prepare. Great branch master. Jun Changshao interlocked his fingers and said, "You should know why I'm here this time, right?" Puchi. Puchi. The people in the hall were talking and laughing while the disciples outside the hall were killing each other. It was a scene of harmony on one side and cruelty on the other. The big branch leader's complexion became more and more unsightly. His palms and feet were drenched in sweat. This was not a symptom of kidney deficiency. This was due to fear. Strangely enough, Jun Changshao, who was sitting beside him, did not release any of his aura, but he felt an immense pressure. Even his breathing became hurried. If the big branch master knew that the person in front of him was a genuine ninth-grade sword and martial king, he would understand why he was so afraid. June Patriarch. He gathered his courage and said, During this period of time, my demon fiend's sect has not offended the sect of all times. What about before? The big branch master trembled and said, June Patriarch, I was just following orders. When he had just received the order from headquarters, he had sent Jiangye and the others to Iron Bone Mountain. He had not been so fearful. Right. Jun Changshao thought of something and said, A while ago, how was the fight between your demon fiend sect and the Taikuan sect over the spirit stone vein? This guy knew about this matter. It must have been Jiangye who told him. Speak, Jun Changshao said in a low voice. The big branch master hurriedly said, Jun Patriarch, my demon fiend sect repelled the Taikuan sect and defended the spirit stone vein. Where is the vein? Jun Changshao said. Bang, a stream of light shot out, directly blasting the big branch master's leg. His body suddenly tilted, half kneeling on the ground. His expression suddenly became fierce. Jun Changshao pressed the smoking muzzle of the desert eagle to his head and said coldly, You must answer my question in full detail. You have no right to refuse. Devil. The big branch master endured the intense pain and the burning sensation on his forehead, and said with a fierce expression, Jun Changshao, if you dare to kill me, you will become an enemy of the demon fiend sect. This was a ruthless person. Today, he fell into his hands. It would be difficult to leave alive. Anyway, he was going to die anyway. Why not show some manliness? Seriously. Jun Changshao said, I really want you to live and witness how the demon fiend sect is destroyed by the sect of all times. But, bang, pulling the trigger, it directly penetrated the big branch master's head and said, If you want to be a tough guy, I will definitely fulfill your wish. When dealing with enemies, Jun Changshao really wasn't the least bit soft-hearted. It was a pity for the unyielding big branch master. Originally, it was just a symbol of manliness. If Jun Patriarch played some tricks, he would definitely immediately surrender. But in the end, he didn't even get a second chance to ask, directly shooting like this. On the Yellow Springs Road. He was definitely crying and shouting, Big brother, can't we play the cards according to the routine next time? Hall Masterly Jun Changshao took back the Desert Eagle and transmitted, investigate the location of the Spirit Stone Vein that the Demon Fiend Sect and the Supreme Kun Sect are fighting over. The sooner the better. Yes. Li Luoqiu used the sound transmission technique to contact the intelligence bases of the cities in southwest Yangzhou. Spies in northeast Luzhou might make mistakes, but once they started operating in their own territory, there would be absolutely no mistakes. Let's go. Jun Changshao stepped over the big branch master's corpse. Chapter 595. Destroyed. Two simple words, but how arrogant. The God-slaying Hall branch leader and the two elders had ugly expressions. Since the establishment of the branch in southwest Yangzhou, no one had dared to openly bring people to kill them. No one dared to provoke the Devil Fiend Sect's branch either. But now, wasn't it razed to the ground? Jun Patriarch was very strong, but he might not dare to fight with a third-rate evil sect, but he could still deal with these small fries. Jun Changshao. Guo Digang said coldly, Are you declaring war on my god-slaying hall? You can think of it that way. Jun Changshao waved his hand, and the disciples behind him swarmed in. Guo Digang's eyes flashed with killing intent. He immediately activated his martial king cultivation and landed on the training field with a heavy aura. However, just as he landed, Yi Xingqian appeared in front of him with the cloud-treading steps. He raised one hand and said coldly, Die. Whoosh! The seven mysterious light break instantly condensed and shot out a beam of light from his palm. It mercilessly pierced through Guo Digang's chest with great force, and a shocking wound appeared. Domineering. No emotions. Before his consciousness disappeared, Guo Digang's eyes were filled with fear. When he went to Mount Iron Bone, he and Elder Guo had fought with Jun Changshao. But now, they were killed in an instant by this disciple. Elder Guo. Elder Jun roared angrily. Go to hell with him. Yi Xingqian raised his hand. Scorching flames whizzed out, turning into an explosive slash of light that slashed down from above. Boom! Under everyone's gaze, Elder Zhen was cut in half by the red sky raging flame slash, and a huge hole appeared in the hall behind him. 2 martial kings, killed in 2 moves. Yi Xingqian, who had broken through to martial king, was simply explosive. The God-slaying hall branch leader, who was sent flying by the scorching wave, was shocked. At this moment, the only thing he could do was to watch his sect members being mercilessly killed by the Sect of All Time's disciples, and then fall to the ground one by one. Art comes from explosions. Zhen Dejuan stood outside the God-slaying temple branch base, spread his arms, and said with a ferocious expression, "Please enjoy it to your heart's content." Boom! Lightning flashed and the earth shook. Under the cloud of dust, Jun Changshao led his disciples away. Just like how he came in a hurry and left in a hurry, he didn't take away a single cloud, only the countless treasures of the other party. Patriarch. Li Luochio's voice sounded in his ears, "We found the demon fiend Sect's spirit stone mine." Jun Changxiao's lips curled into a faint sneer. He then turned around and led the 1,000 disciples towards the location of the mineral lode. A spirit stone mine. Counted as interest for the demon fiend Sect's debt. On this day. The patriarch, Yin Shangye, said with a cold gaze, "How dare you destroy my sect's branch in southwestern Yangzhou? Jun Changshao, you're really bold." Report. At that moment, a subordinate entered the hall and said, "The mine in southwestern Yangzhou has been occupied by the Sect of All Times. All 1,000 disciples have been killed." Yin Shangye, who could still tolerate it, felt his head explode when he heard this news. "Third elder, fourth elder," he said in a low voice, "head to southwestern Yangzhou and head to the Sect of All Times." Patriarch. An elder hurriedly said, "The Sect of All Times is protected by the Certification Center and the Heavenly Mandate Academy. I'm afraid it's not appropriate for us to send people over. If I don't retaliate after being bullied to the face, what right do I have to lead the entire sect?" Yin Shangye said angrily. If it was just the branch being destroyed, he could tolerate it. But the mine being occupied was a great loss. He couldn't take this lying down. He had to make the Sect of All Times pay the price. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 Wu Huang from the Demon Fiend's Sect headquarters turned into streamers and sped away. Perhaps they knew what the Sect of All Times had done in northeastern Luzhou, so they sent Wu Huang at their peak. A big battle array. At the same time, the Deicide Hall headquarters also sent masters. Although their losses couldn't be compared to the Demon Fiend Sect, they also sent 2 Wu Huang at their peak. Of course. The 2 evil patriarch knew that if the Certification Center and the Heavenly Mandate Academy insisted on protecting the Sect of All Times, they might not be able to destroy it. But they had to put pressure on them. For Wu Huang at their peak was the greatest pressure. Really. The pressure was immense. Yi Tianqing and Situ Haoyun both frowned when they heard the news. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, a majestic aura suddenly emerged from the City Lord's office. The 2 of them exclaimed, "City Lord Mu has come out of seclusion." This aura, Situ Haoyun said solemnly, "He has stepped into the level of Wu Sheng." Yi Tianqing said in disbelief, "It's been a long time since a master of this level appeared in southwestern Yangzhou. City Lord Mu is indeed the legend of the entire state." Father. In the academy, Mu Honglian's eyes were filled with joy. Whoosh! A middle-aged man with a dignified appearance stood in the sky and transmitted his voice, "While I was in seclusion, has Southwest Yangzhou been peaceful? With June Patriarch here, peaceful my ass." Chapter 596. 100 years ago, on a rainbow day after the rain, a baby boy was born in the Mu family's west courtyard. Because he was born of a concubine, the baby boy had never received the love of his father or his family. It was as if he had been abandoned by the whole world. It was such an ordinary child who rose from nothing. In just 100 years, not only did he break through Wu Huang, but he also took control of the huge Mu family and became the new city lord of Heavenly Mandate City. That was right. He was Mu Changhong, Mu Honglian's father. He was a very idealistic and ambitious cultivator. Under his management, Heavenly Mandate City developed rapidly, and its strength rose steadily. Finally, it was rated as a royal city. When he was middle-aged, his entrepreneurial passion was no longer there. Mu Changhong immersed himself in martial arts and pursued a higher realm. The most talked about by the world was, although Mu Changhong had supreme power and wealth, he only loved his wife. He didn't even have a confidant, let alone a concubine. There was nothing wrong with such a person. However, it was because he liked to brag when he drank too much that his daughter was still unmarried. Because he had no children, he gradually withdrew from the political scene and handed over power to Mu Honglian. He hoped that his daughter could inherit his will and make Royal City more prosperous. After coming out of seclusion, the first thing he asked was whether Southwest Yangzhou was peaceful. It showed that he had been in seclusion for a long time. "Father," Mu Honglian said, "not peaceful." "Not peaceful?" Mu Changhong frowned and said, "Could it be that Zhuo Chaochuan of Xinjiang County started a war when I was in seclusion? No wonder he was the city lord." Even if he was in seclusion, he could feel that the county chief of Xinjiang County was not a person who knew his place. "Father," Mu Honglian hurriedly said, "I just received news that the demon sect and murdering shrine sent 4 Wu Huang peak cultivators to Southwest Yangzhou." "Demon sect? Murdering shrine?" Mu Changhong sneered and said, "These two evil sects have no enmity with Southwest Yangzhou. Why would they send cultivators here?" "Because," Mu Honglian paused and said, "Father, it's a long story. I need to tell you slowly." She needed to tell him everything about Jun Changshao and his sect of all times, but her confidence was too great to be summarized in just 1 or 2 sentences. Actually, Jun Patriarch's entire life could be summed up with the word handsome. Schwa. Mu Changhong raised his hand, and space suddenly condensed as if it was being torn apart by some kind of power. Mu Honglian, who was in the academy, felt a suction force. She merged into the distorted space and appeared in the main hall of the city lord's mansion. Spatial transference. Situ Haoyun's eyes were filled with envy. He was now at the peak of Wu Huang. After the Heavenly Mandate Imperial City was promoted to the Imperial City, he had thought about clearing out all the branches of the major foreign forces in the state. But he didn't take action because he wasn't strong enough to fight against the third-rate evil sections. He had to wait for the right time. This time, when he came out of seclusion, his cultivation was half a step away from Wusheng. City Lord Mu would definitely plan and find a groundless excuse to pull out all the nails under his eyes. Who would have thought? This little guy named Jun Changshao was 1 step ahead of him. Ha ha ha. Mu Changhong laughed out loud and said, "His temper and style are too compatible. How can he not be my son-in-law?" "Father," Mu Honglian said, "we are talking about business." Mu Changhong sat down again and said, "Daughter, your future happiness is the most important business of your father's life. As a parent, didn't he think about his child's future? So even if it was just wishful thinking of City Lord Mu, there was nothing wrong with it." Mu Honglian didn't want to be entangled with her father on this issue. She said, 2 third-rate evil sects and 4 peak Wu Huang are about to come. Father, how do you plan to deal with them? Needless to say. Mu Changhong stood up with his hands behind his back. His eyes were cold and fierce. If they dare to touch a hair of the warriors of Yangzhou in the southwest, I will make them pay 100 times the price. Everyone stood up. Cheers for City Lord Mu. Ha! At this moment, he released his spiritual thoughts and captured the ripples in the sky. A stream of light was moving forward at an extremely fast speed. The momentum it emitted was comparable to his. The place it was heading to was Qingyang County. Could it be that the demon sect and the god-slaying hall not only sent peak Wu Huang, but also a half-step Wu Sheng? Swish! Mu Changhong's figure flashed, and he appeared in the sky outside the imperial city. He chased at a speed that was hard to see with the naked eye. Chapter 597. Sect of All Times. Jun Changshao sat in the main hall, happily counting the natural spirit stones in his interspatial ring. After finding the demon fiend sect's spirit stone mine, he took it without hesitation. What a coincidence! This medium-sized mine was almost emptied out. The demon fiend sect started counting and prepared to send 100,000 spirit stones to their headquarters. But before they could move, Jun Patriarch led people over. No wonder Yin Shangye was furious. After all, that was 100,000 natural spirit stones. The two Peak Wu Huang who were charging over didn't want to cause trouble for the sect of all times. They just wanted to get back the spirit stones they lost. If we use these spirit stones to develop the sect, we'll definitely be able to increase our strength, Jun Changshao murmured. With so many disciples, the supply of spirit stones in the mountain was a bit tight. 100,000 natural spirit stones were worth a lot. Settling the debt this time went very smoothly. He was a bit disappointed that he didn't complete any hidden missions. Actually, with 20,000 contribution points, Jun Patriarch wasn't in urgent need of them. He needed experience talismans because he was only one step away from reaching the peak and triggering an epic mission. Whoosh! Jun Changshao walked out of the main hall in a good mood. Elder Wei stood outside, looking up at the sky with a worried expression. Elder Wei, what are you thinking about? The weather is changing. It's going to rain soon. Jun Changshao looked at the dark clouds pressing down on them. Elder Wei said with a serious expression, Patriarch, I have a bad feeling. What's wrong? Jun Changshao asked. Elder Wei said, the sect has been too ostentatious recently. I'm afraid a calamity will happen. It's fine. Jun Changshao said, I've already ordered Elder Zhen to set up a formation at the foot of the mountain. If anyone comes to cause trouble, we'll definitely blow them up. After having enough fun outside, he came back and thought about it himself. The two third-rate heretical sects definitely wouldn't let him off so easily after acting so arrogantly. Although there was a sect protecting Grand Formation, for safety reasons, he still ordered Jin Dejuan to set up various formations at the foot of the mountain in case of emergency. Elder Wei said, Zhen Deco is only a formation king in the end. When the enemy is stronger, it will be harder for the formation to resist. For example, the half-step Wu Sheng can easily destroy the foundation of the formation by simply shaking the space, thus rendering it ineffective. Jun Changshao had also heard about the half-step Wu Sheng. Strictly speaking, this was a level between Wu Sheng and the peak of Wu Huang. King Wu and Wu Huang didn't say anything. There were Wu Sheng and Martial Grand Emperor, which could be considered a separate division among the higher realms. Jun Changshao said, as far as I know, there aren't many Wu Sheng on the Falling Star continent. Half-step Wu Sheng shouldn't be seen everywhere either. Do you think a powerhouse at this level would bother with worldly affairs instead of pursuing martial arts? Elder Wei said, I'm just making an analogy. Don't worry. Jun Changshao said, it'll be fine. Whoosh whoosh at this moment, a vast force condensed in the sky and instantly turned into a giant palm print, which pressed down with unparalleled power. This sudden turn of events caused Elder Wei's expression to change greatly. When he felt the terrifying spiritual energy, he blurted out, "Half-step Wu Sheng." At this moment, the smile on Jun Changxiao's face froze, and a strong sense of foreboding rose in his heart. "My Elder Wei. You really have a crow's beak." Jun Changxiao. In the sky, an angry voice that shook the space suddenly came, "You bullied my extreme cold palace. Today, I'm here to pay you back 100-fold. Whoosh whoosh, the giant palm print directly shattered the dark clouds and pressed down from above like a meteorite from outer space. A strong murderous aura rose within the range of Iron Bone Mountain. At this moment, all the martial artists in the 8 cities of Azure Sun County heard the angry roar from half-step Wu Sheng and the giant palm print that appeared out of nowhere in the sky. They were so scared that their faces turned pale, and their hearts trembled. "It's over." Xie Guangquan was shocked. If that terrifying palm print pressed down, not to mention the sect of all times, even the entire Iron Bone Mountain would be turned into ruins. The supreme power contained the will to not be disobeyed. Even the distant Azure Mountain sect saw the palm print clearly, and their faces turned ugly. Jun Changxiao's heart trembled under the pressure, but he hurriedly activated the sect protection array and shouted, "Activate the spirit armor." Buzz! Buzz! In an instant, all the disciples in the inner and outer courtyards of the sect of all times released their spirit energy and formed armor in front of them. However, they deeply realized that the power was too terrifying, and they could not resist it. "Are we going to die?" This was the only thought in the minds of Li Qingyang and the others. Damn it! Yi Xingqian, who had just walked out of the training tower, felt the terrifying pressure and said angrily, "If I had the cultivation of my previous life, this power would be nothing more than the light of a firefly." Unfortunately, he did not have it now. Therefore, under half-step Wu Sheng's killing move, Yi Xingqian's body was restrained, and he could only watch helplessly as the palm print pressed down. Not good. Not good. He Wudi's face also turned ugly. He had used up all his cultivation to escape the pursuit of a powerful enemy, and now he had to experience life and death in the mortal world. This was too fucked up. Whoosh whoosh, at this time, in the outer courtyard of the sect of all times, monstrous flames rose into the sky. Little Long Long activated his second combat form, turning into a giant. He kicked off the ground and shot out of the sect protecting array like a cannonball. He angrily shouted, "No one is allowed to harm my master." As he spoke, the barefoot Xiao Maxian was already standing in front of him, her eyes filled with unprecedented seriousness. She said, "Little ugly bug, today you and I will fight side by side for my master." Pa! Little Long Long slapped out, sending the cute little girl into the sect protecting array. He looked up at the palm print pressing down, his eyes resolute. "Annoying woman, don't get in the way. Brother Long Long. A real man." Whoosh whoosh, at this time, the monstrous palm print pressed down. Little Long Long looked at Jun Changxiao, a brilliant smile on his face. Then, he looked up and flames erupted in the sky. His entire body instantly transformed, turning into a crimson vicious beast. Horns like a deer, head like a camel, eyes like a rabbit, and neck like a snake. Belly like a snake, scales like a fish, palms like a tiger, and ears like a cow. Stepping on the void, his 4 feet were covered in flames, and he had sharp claws like an eagle. This was a dragon. This was a 5-clawed divine dragon. Seeing Little Long Long transform into a body that represented the totems of China, Jun Changxiao was dumbfounded. Roar! A dragon's roar shook the 9 heavens. Little Long Long dragged his long body, bringing with it endless flames as he rushed towards the vast palm print pressing down. No! Jun Changxiao roared, his face ferocious. The palm print pressing down was simply too terrifying. Even if Little Long Long's flames had reached the limit, rushing forward was no different from striking a stone with an egg. Not allowed. Not allowed. Jun Changxiao's eyes turned red. Strong winds instantly surged around his body. He pulled out his 40-meter-long saber and locked it onto the palm print, pressing down. Freeze. Freeze for this father. Unfortunately, no matter how he manipulated it, the palm print that carried with it a supreme majesty continued to crash down, completely unaffected by the shackles of space. Although the unstoppable saber after the Bankai was very strong, it was still no match for the half-step Wusheng. Without this saber, Jun Changxiao had lost his biggest trump card. At this moment, he could only watch little Long Long meet the vast palm print with his eyes wide open. Boom! A deafening explosion came from the great Sect protection formation. The entire earth seemed to have lost all its color in an instant. Jun Changxiao's heart was bleeding. Little Long Long rushed over like this. In the face of absolute power, it was definitely doomed. Crack! Crack! The space on Mount Iron Bone collapsed in a large area. It was as if a mirror had been blasted into pieces. The Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace was so angry that his face alternated between red and green. Mu Changhong said coldly, "The sects of our prefecture challenged the Extreme Coldness Palace in a weak position. If you can't defeat them, you can only blame yourselves for being too weak. Sending 8 sect leaders together is just bullying us. Now, you've even sent half-step Wusheng to kill us. You've gone too far." In the dark, the corners of the mouths of the masters of the Heavenly Mandate Royal City and the certification hall twitched. If it was just a challenge, it wouldn't be a big deal. It would just be embarrassing if he couldn't win. However, that brat had almost destroyed the entire Extreme Coldness Palace. Since he was a half-step Wusheng, there was no way he could tolerate it. City Lord Mu. Aren't you being too direct in protecting him? This was good too. After all, he was the city lord of the royal city of southwest Yangzhou. It was more appropriate for him to come forward and protect them than for a neutral organization like theirs. Someone asked, if Mu Changhong hadn't come out of seclusion at this time, wouldn't the sect of all times be doomed? It didn't exist. The cultivators of the Heavenly Mandate Academy and the Certification Center had already arrived in advance. However, just like in northeast Luzhou, they were forcefully stopped by other factors before they could appear. The Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace said in a low voice, "City Lord Mu, are you clearly trying to protect the sect of all times?" "Nonsense." Mu Changhong said, "If I don't protect the forces of southwest Yangzhou, who will?" Jun Changxiao, who was standing below, heard this, and his impression of this city lord of the royal city, whom he had never met before, skyrocketed. However, how could he trouble others? Jun Changxiao said, "City Lord Mu, this is a feud between the sect of all times and the Extreme Coldness Palace. Let's leave it to Jun to handle." Mu Changhong was stunned. Didn't this guy know that the other party was half a step away from Wusheng? Step. Jun Changxiao took a step forward and locked his eyes on the Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace. He said, "Today, I will personally meet this half a step away from Wusheng." Elder Wei and Elder Zhen were dumbfounded. Was the patriarch crazy? He dared to meet the half a step away from Wusheng. Mu Changhong's mouth twitched, and he transmitted his voice, "Little brat, don't show off. With me here, no one can hurt your sect of all times." Jun Changxiao blamed himself and said, "I thought that the strongest of the fourth-class sects would be Wu Huang at the peak, so I brought my disciples to the Extreme Coldness Palace. I didn't expect that there would be a half step away from Wusheng. This is my mistake." The biggest reason he dared to go to Lu province in the northeast was because of his unstoppable blade. However, in front of the half a step away from Wusheng, it couldn't be used at all. This was also something he didn't expect. This is a lesson. It also made me realize that some sects with strong foundations can't be judged just by their level. Jun Changshao kept talking to himself, as if he was summing up his experience, or reflecting on himself. Yes. He had been too reckless during this period. He went to someone else's territory to cause trouble, and even eliminated 2 third-class heretical sects branches. Any one of these things was infinitely courting death. The half a step away from Wusheng came to pay the price for his previous courting death. Jun Changshao liked to plan ahead, but in the end, he still made a mistake. The same mistake. He looked at the unconscious little dragon and said, "I won't make the same mistake a second time." Whoosh! As he spoke, he stopped outside the mountain gate and stood in front of the sect protecting formation. He looked up at the Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace and said in a deep voice, "Do you dare to fight with me?" Whoosh whoosh, the aura of a 9th grade sword martial art erupted. This level of strength would definitely cause a lot of shock in front of a martial king or an ordinary Wu Huang, but the half a step away from Wusheng would definitely not be shocked. The Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace frowned. This kid had such terrifying strength at such a young age. He didn't dare to imagine how powerful he would be when he grew up. If the sect hadn't almost been destroyed, this half a step away from Wusheng wouldn't have personally charged into the sect of all times and intensified the conflict between them. City Lord Mu. The Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace said coldly, "Should this old man accept or not?" Mu Changhong said, "There's something wrong with this kid's head. There's no need to pay attention to him. This city lord will have a good fight with you today. A martial king against a half-saint. Even if one used their feet to think, they still had no chance of winning." City Lord Mu. Jun Changshao said in a firm tone, "Today, I must fight this half a step away from Wusheng." Mu Changhong wanted to kick him. However, he suppressed it and transmitted his voice, "Kid, are you crazy? You dare to challenge the half a step away from Wusheng? Shut up and find a cool place to lie down. Leave the rest to me." City Lord Mu was very supportive. However, Jun Changshao said firmly, "I just took the medicine. I must fight him." Mu Changhong said, "How confident are you?" Asking a martial king how confident he was in defeating a half-saint. Was he infected and had something wrong with his head? 100%. Jun Changshao said. The corner of Mu Changhong's mouth twitched. At this moment, he finally understood why this kid dared to be so arrogant recently. It turned out that he was a lunatic. The Grand Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace thought for a moment and said, "City Lord Mu, since the people of your prefecture are so persistent, this old man can only accept the challenge." Jun Changshao smiled coldly. Then, he opened the system store and clicked on the high-level store. Whoosh, the store opened, and rows of high-level products appeared. 9 Transformation Marrow Cleansing Pill. Dragon Elephant Prajna Palm. Fleeting Dragon Steps. 1000-Year Ice Armor. Sacred Flame Physique. The products he saw for the first time after transmigrating were all in the list. The high-level store's condition was that the sect had to be a 5th-rate sect. This was met. The high-level store's price was 10,000 points. Jun Changshao now had 20,000 points, which was also met. Hard to Keep Blade was his trump card. However, after becoming a 5th-rate sect, the high-level store was Jun Patriarch's real trump card. It could even be described as a trump card warehouse. 20,000 points. He could buy 2 items from the high-level store. Could he defeat the half a step away from Wusheng? Urgent. Waiting online. Chapter 599. When walking by the river, how could one's shoes not get wet? Jun Changshao did not expect that the extreme cold palace had a half-step Wusheng. If not for Mu Changhong's help, the sect and little Long Long would have been in trouble. Even those who were good at scheming would make mistakes, let alone Jun Changshao, who was just an ordinary person who had transmigrated. However, putting aside the fact that the other party had suddenly killed him, Jun Patriarch could actually fight with the half-step Wusheng, because the bigger trump card had already been opened after the sect was promoted to a sect. This was the biggest trump card that Jun Changshao dared to go to Luzhou in the northeast and destroy 2 evil sect branches. To be honest, he did not think so at first. The 20,000 contribution points were used to develop the sect. Now that the half-step Wusheng had come and almost caused the sect to suffer, even if he had to spend all of it, he had to beat him up. There were many kinds of items in the high-level store, but for real battles, cultivation techniques, martial arts, and pills were excluded. After all, there was no time for Jun Patriarch to comprehend, so it had to be the kind that could be used immediately. For example, God-modified RPG rocket launcher. The introduction said that this was a portable rocket launcher. After being modified, it was powered by crystal cores and could directly shatter space. God-modified products all had special effects. Once it was activated and fired, it would hit 100% of the time. Even if the opponent traveled through space or escaped to the ends of the earth, it would still be locked on. If it was in the past, Jun Patriarch would definitely buy such an awesome product. However, he continued to flip through it quickly and thought to himself, there are only 20,000 contribution points. If I want to use them, I have to use them on the blade. Next, Jun Changshao saw a product called God-modified mechanical wings. Wearing this item would allow the martial artist to have a pair of wings, ignoring the restrictions of heaven and earth, and fly freely. Moreover, the martial artist could enter multiple combat positions. It's a bit like Iron Man's armor. Jun Changshao muttered. No. It was too high-tech. It would be inappropriate to take it out. Jun Patriarch prayed that there would be good items in the beginner and intermediate shops. However, the items in the advanced shops made him think, which one would be better to buy. The main problem was that there was no indication of fighting prowess in the description of the item. As such, Zhang Xian was unsure whether he would be able to defeat half-step Wusheng if he bought it. He continued to filter. Jun Patriarch. The Extreme Coldness Palace's Grand Elder said in a deep voice, this old man has already accepted the challenge. Why aren't you coming out to fight? Don't worry. Jun Changshao said, I'll give you some time to enjoy life, because you won't have the chance to do so soon. Arrogant. The Supreme Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace said coldly. If it weren't for City Lord Mu standing outside the array formation, he would have already broken the sect protecting Grand Array. To be honest, only this kind of half-step saint could shake the sect protecting Grand Array. If it were Wu Huang, even if he was at his peak, he wouldn't be able to do so. Because the defensive strength of the intermediate sect protecting Grand Array could withstand the attacks of King Wu and Wu Huang. In Jun Changshao's view, the Demon Sect and the God-Slaying Hall were just 2 branches that had been destroyed. Even if they really wanted to take revenge, they wouldn't send a half-step saint. He guessed right. The angriest patriarch of the Demon Sect only sent 2 Peak Wu Huang. Their purpose wasn't to destroy the sect of all times, but to ask for the 100,000 spirit stones. The Supreme Elder of the Extreme Coldness Palace broke through half-step Wusheng and came here. This was really the biggest variable. It was also something that Jun Changshao didn't expect even in his dreams. Otherwise, even if the 4 Peak Wu Huang of the 2 evil sects came here and caused trouble for the sect, they wouldn't be completely defenseless like just now. Jun Changshao continued to browse and locked his eyes on the item called Talisman of Heaven and Earth. He clicked on the details. Item, Talisman of Heaven and Earth. Introduction, a talisman created by the Tao Ancestor. It has the power to connect the heavens and the earth and reverse the universe. Effect, after use, it can instantly stimulate the limits of the human body, causing a huge increase in cultivation. Advantage, according to the user's potential, it can maximize the stimulation of one's cultivation, at least by a large realm. Disadvantage, lasts for 60 minutes. After the effect ends, the user will be like a weak scholar who can't even trust a chicken for a year. Price, 10,000 contribution points. Stimulate a large realm. Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up. I'm currently a 9th grade sword and martial king. After using it, I can reach the 9th grade sword and martial emperor. That's right. The system said. Jun Changxiao said, at the moment, this item is the most reliable item. It shouldn't be a problem to beat this guy. The half-step saint was only slightly stronger than Peak Wu Huang, but a 9th grade sword and martial emperor was definitely not ordinary. Not to mention. And this was only the lowest stimulation. If he reached the peak, or the level of a half-step sword and martial saint, he would definitely be able to beat him until he pissed his pants. The system said, don't forget, there's a year-long side effect. If we defeat this half-step Wu Sheng, our sect of all times will definitely shock the entire Starfall continent. Using a year's time to exchange for this doesn't seem like a loss. Jun Changxiao thought to himself. Although he said that, he still continued to look at the other items. There were all sorts of martial arts techniques, cultivation methods, and pill recipes in the high-level shop, but there weren't many that could be used immediately. Therefore, Jun Changxiao could only consider buying talismans, rocket launchers, and mechanical armament wings. Even if the first two items had the possibility of defeating half-step Wu Sheng, it would still give the impression that they were relying on external items. If he used talismans, others wouldn't be able to tell and would only think that he was strong. It was decided. Ding! Host has spent 10,000 contribution points. You have obtained Talisman of Heaven and Earth X1. It has been transferred into the spatial ring. Ding! Sect contribution points, 100,002,0000. After buying the Talisman of Heaven and Earth, Jun Changxiao said proudly, this world thinks that our sect of all times is just a rising force. They don't know that our heritage is from the ancient times, from the great sage, heaven's equal. Swoosh! He raised his hand, his fingers forming a hook, and pressed against his temple. His clothes fluttered without any wind, and said, today, I will let the world know what it means to inherit the will of the sect of all times. Ancestors of the sect of all times, please bestow your power to me, to punish today's invaders. The system, could he not brag? Could he not make the sect seem like it really came from the ancient times? He couldn't. He had to brag, he had to raise his own status. Otherwise, how could he be worthy of the 10,000 contribution points that died? Snap! The Talisman of Heaven and Earth in the spatial ring was crushed. Whoosh whoosh, a violent aura instantly burst out from Jun Changxiao's body, forming a power that rippled through the entire Iron Bone Mountain. Feeling that terrifying power, Mu Changhong said in shock, Wu Sheng. That's right. After Jun Changxiao crushed the talisman, all the muscles, meridians, spirit cores, and even every inch of hair in his body were completely stimulated, and his cultivation realm broke through to Wu Sheng in an instant. Not half a step. It was the real Wu Sheng. That terrifying power spread out, and the space trembled violently, as if it could collapse at any time. The sect-protecting formation and the various formations at the foot of the mountain all stopped operating under the violent interference of the space, and lost their function. Stomp! Jun Changxiao took a step forward, and his entire body was enveloped by a terrifying power. Hiss hiss hiss, his entire body erupted with light similar to electric arcs, and if his hair turned golden and stood up, it would be super. He raised his head and said in a low voice, you dare to come to the sect of all times and behave so atrociously? You must be tired of living. The extreme coldness Palace Grand Elder's expression changed drastically. Under the influence of that terrifying holy power, his mind could not remain calm, and his body instantly lost balance and fell from the sky. Buzz! Suddenly, the space rippled. Jun Changxiao appeared out of thin air in front of the Grand Elder's falling trajectory and blasted toward him with the power to shake the space. Boom! The space caved in and collapsed, forming a dense spider web. Boom! 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 The extreme coldness palace Grand Elder flew past like a cannonball, smashing through layers of mountains before finally landing on a grassland hundreds of miles away. The huge impact directly shook the ground until it caved in more than 100 feet, as if it was caused by a small meteorite. Whoosh! Jun Changshao appeared out of thin air above the deep crater and raised his hands, and a gush of energy shot out like a cannonball. Boom! 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 The explosion of energy caused the entire Azure Sun County to tremble. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.